All right. Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us today. It's a lovely Monday evening. I hope you're having a wonderful day wherever you are. And welcome, Ifa Damisi. Thank you for joining us. And thanks to our supporters on TikTok who have helped us to get to 29.6k likes. I'm talking about Koboko. Thank you very, very much. Primarily Koboko and others as well, but Koboko Nikomori baby. So thank you very much, Koboko, and everyone who has power tapped to get us to 29.9. It's actually 30k likes just now. Thank you. Thank you very much for your support. These things actually help a lot. All right. And please, if you just join us, please like and share. Share the live as we all power tap. 30.2k likes. Very good. Very, very good. Thank you. So please let's like the live. Let's share the live. And if you join us on YouTube and on Facebook, we're glad to have you. Please like the live stream. Also share with others so that folks can join us. And apparently we can also power tap on YouTube now, because the more you click on it, the more the algorithm gets the message that we're busy here. And then others will be able to find this live stream. So today I'm going to be responding to a question somebody asked a while back. I mentioned it here in passing, I think about last week or so. But today we're going to actually dive right into it, it has to do with Azikiwe's role in the Biafran war. And we're going to talk more about that later today. But of course, we're going to have the news before we get into that, okay? But first, let me just say, if you're on TikTok, please click on the heart icon above me here. Good evening, Bonfire. Thank you for joining us. Bumblebee. Yes, Bumblebee as well. Thank you. Thank you for liking the live. Thank you very, very much for your support. I don't know why the app did not bring your name up, because I see your name earlier. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. So yeah, we're going to get to the news and all of those things in a bit, but please click on the heart icon up here and join the team. If you're a member of the team, please click on it to drop your heart to me, drop a gift. All these things will help us get to the FYP, that's the For You page. Thank you very, very much. All right, we're going to get started now. We're going to get started with the news. We have a lot of things to cover because it's a Monday after all. So, a lot of things have happened over the weekend. So, we're going to get into those things. And then we'll discuss Azikiwe's role in Biafra. People have said it wasn't really part of Biafra. Some people say it wasn't Biafra. It was, it was part of it. And let me just give you a hint. A lot of Igbos, when you talk about Azikiwe's role, generally they just curse him out and say he's a terrible person. Well, the reason is not unconnected with the fact that he stopped believing in Biafra. But at what point did he believe? At what point did he stop believing? Or was actually his role? Did he help Ojukwu in any way? Or, at all, did he help Ojukwu throughout his journey when he moved to Nigeria? What was the motivation? And what can we learn from that episode of Nigeria's history? We're going to discuss that much later. But first, we're going to have the news. Now, a lot of things have happened. So over the weekend, some videos trended, some statements also trended. But we're going to start with this particular video, right? This particular video that I find it quite funny that a person thinks that they can talk like this in 2026, especially since this did not work in 2023, 23, last election didn't work. So you'd expect that sensible people would know that you would want to change strategies if it didn't work the last time. But I guess not everybody is that, shall I say, sensible. Anyway, let's begin with this one, and then we'll get into other things very soon. Take a listen, and then we'll play other things as well. Okay, but let's start with this one that happened in. It's called play other things as well. Okay, but let's start with this one that happened in. It's called KIK's Club. They have this very interesting topical conversations. I like, watching. Take a listen to this, please.
Yeah, you guys realize it, the better. But when I see some of you taking.
Take a listen to this, please.
Yeah, you guys realize it, the better. But when I see some of you taking your necks out for pastor this, pastor that, those people are businessmen. They are there for their pockets. They don't care about you. Tribalism. You see why they were protesting against Jonathan then? Because you see the culture already makes them look submissive to an elder, whether it's good or bad. Submissive to an elder, whether it's good or bad. So I think the Yoruba culture, the lying down, prostrating, all those things confine them. They can't talk. So they're not going to say anything. So don't wait for them. They're not going to say anything. They're going to pretend as if they don't know. And they're going to send you guys to go and pray. Well, the moment a non-Yoruba person is on that, fully aware of the national problem. So it's still tribalism, nepotism, and these guys are just there for their pockets.
Thank you.
One of the things that guys, have been doing, like this fashion statement has been very popular in the last 10 years thereabout, is men leaving their beards to grow. When I started leaving my beard to grow because, so apparently I look younger than my age. So I thought it was going to help. Apparently it has not helped. But I think my own case is a lot better. There are people who leave it on because they want to look good. So I had to learn to leave it on because I want to look good. Because two reasons I started keeping my beard. Number one, I had to look a bit like, I'm not that bad there. Number two, after my dad passed, I looked at some of his pictures, and he used to keep beard at some point. Of course, after a while he stopped. So I was like, okay, maybe I should even do something just to, look like this guy, and even try to remember him or something like that. Anyway, turns out that beard actually look good on me, even though I've tried to remove it over and over again. Why am I starting with beards? Because this particular guy has beard all over his face. And one of the things I've noticed is that there are many clowns who actually are bearded, and yes, it's supposed to make them look older, but somehow the level of wisdom always shows. It doesn't really matter how long the beard is. So yes, Dr. Badra, I wanted to keep his memory alive, but apparently over time I discovered that it actually looked good on me. Now, it can look good on you, but if the first reason, which is to make you appear older, it may make you appear older, okay? But the question is, do you have enough wisdom to be able to actually speak as someone who you get the point? Does your word or your opinion, does it match the older look they are gunning for? I said that to say that guys like this have their faces full of beards and their brains not properly checked. Because how on earth will you start the conversation by saying things like, oh, religious leaders? When they say religious leaders, guys, maybe we should also start telling ourselves the truth. They are talking about the particular group that, quote unquote, dominates the religious space in Nigeria, and they are Yoruba people. So one of the biggest churches are also by Yoruba. But it's not our fault, it's a lot of things. It goes back thousands of years. The reason we are the way we are. So what did you expect, that pastors should start, roaming the streets and acting in support of Peter Obi? Last election, every pastor who supported Peter Obi was the second person after Jesus Christ. After Jesus, that's pastor in that city. But as soon as you either support the opposition or you are just what's the word, non-partisan, you don't want to support anybody, you are a demon. So they came up with this nonsense last election, and they've started again, insulting ministers. You think it's actually about what the pastors are not doing right. It's because of the ethnicity of the pastors. And then the next thing he said is that he didn't want to insult all Yoruba because there are some Yoruba. By the way, if you are a Yoruba person, that's a backhanded compliment. There are some Yoruba people. So your own job in life is to now find your way into that some, which is the group that actually pleases them. So the job of the Yoruba person is to do everything they can do to make sure that, you know what, I'm just one of the some sensible Yoruba people, although he's sensible himself. Then he said something about the fact that our culture, we put a lot of premium on respect because we just how did he say it? Because it was actually quite insulting. You know what? I want to listen to he doesn't have as much brains as he thinks he does, because how do you speak about an entire ethnicity and you denigrate them and then you say, but some of them are not like that, they're not so tribalistic? I want to play that part. Take a listen.
They don't care about you. Tribalism. You see why they were protesting against Jonathan then? Because Jonathan was not a Yoruba man. He wasn't a Yoruba man. That's why. And you see, if you look at, I don't want to just say something against the Yoruba, because there are still some reasonable Yoruba people that are indifferent. But majority of the Yorubas, they have this tribalism issue. And it's a problem. Once their man is there, you see, the culture already ties their hands, makes them look submissive to an elder, whether it's good or bad. So I think the Yoruba culture, the lying down, prostrating, all those things confine them. They can't talk. So they're not going to say anything. So don't wait for them they're not going to say anything. They're going to pretend as if they don't know. And they're going to send you guys. A non-Yoruba person is on that seat. You see the heat. And they become fully aware of the national problem. So it's still tribalism.
Why did I say that the pastors was talking about was actually talking about Yoruba people? Because eventually said they will tell you to go and pray after telling you that they just be prostrating and lying on the ground. Now, Nigeria's history, when it comes to protest and activism in the history of Nigeria, the first ethnicity you will find are the Yoruba people, the supposed group that have been tied down because they respect their elders. Do we respect our elders? Yes, we do, because we are not riffraffs. Okay? We understand orderliness. We understand structure in society. We don't just move around like fools and say everybody's Oga. We don't just do things and say we're like acephalous people that are headless. You actually have to have clear order and structure. And we use age because that's natural. Now, just because we have respect for elders does not mean we don't speak when elders are saying something, or at least we find a way to pass across our message. In our own culture, unlike some of these clowns. By the way, anybody that says things like, I don't want to disrespect Yoruba because there are some, but then goes ahead to disrespect Yoruba people, that person doesn't have sense. Let's just make that very clear. Because you're saying, it's like what we say, you've said it. So the idea of, I don't want to really disrespect them because some of them are smart, but guess what? I'm going to now disrespect them. You're not very smart. Now, you talked about people prostrating. What does that have to do with anything? You don't know what it means to stoop to conquer. Now, in Nigeria's history, like I said, when it comes to activism, the primary group you will find at the forefront are the Yoruba. If there are people who just, lie down and once they prostrate, they don't think about anything again, would they be known for that? Then he mentioned Jonathan when Jonathan was head of state. When Jonathan was president group, spearheaded by Pastor Tunde Bakare, the major people who spoke up during the kitchen cabinet saga when President Yar'Adua was in Saudi Arabia and then they didn't allow Goodluck to function, who spoke up for him? Not these people's family members or the ethnic or people from the ethnicity. Or once they don't have a Yoruba person, they don't talk. But the Yoruba people actually, you know what? I'm going to play you a video. So this happened 10th March 2010. And someone wrote something very important in the comment section. I should read it very quickly. It's actually Papa wrote this. Yes, Oguntoye. It was the goal of Azikiwe and it's the goal of his offspring to corrode the self-respect of the Yoruba. They have to find a way. But 10th March 2010, it was Save Nigeria Group protest. against a cabal, that particular cabal that did not allow Jonathan to have free reins while the president Yar'Adua was in Saudi Arabia. Take a listen to this, please.
Do you know? I know. Do you know? I know. We have claimed our right once again this morning. Whether the enemies of democracy like it or not, we have made a point to them. Nobody can intimidate us. Nobody can harass us. Nobody can take those rights we have won in the struggle of the Nigerian people for a new country. We won the battle to organize peaceful rallies in our country without asking for police permit. What we ask for is police protection, and that has been made available in line with the Constitution of. Do you know? I know. Do you know? I know.
The people singing are Yoruba people. The person they are saying no Masewale is a Yoruba man. Whose name is that person? Whose name? Obasanjo. Do you know? I mean, enemy Ogba. Because there's no reason for it. In the heat of that moment in 2010, they were threatening or they were warning Obasanjo of the possibility of going to prison. And they were fighting for Jonathan against the kitchen cabinet that was actually stopping him from being able to actually, have free reins to do what he had to do as vice president in the absence of the president. You see, all these ones, don't join politics in 2023. They have no idea what happened in Nigerian politics. As far as you're not supporting what's not the savior, Obi, then you don't know what's happening. It's ridiculous. And I want to read something from our biography. This is the autobiography of Chief Obafemi Awolowo. I want to just finish the quote that somebody wrote in the comment section. I hope I find it very quickly, though. Okay, Mambo. It says here, by the end of August 1940, we're speaking here, Papa Awolowo. By the end of August 1940, I was certain in my own mind that Dr. Azikiwe was not a conscientious member of the Nigerian youth movement, and that for some reasons best known to himself, he was bent on destroying this nationalist organization. At the same time, it seemed clear to me that his policy was to corrode the self-respect of the Yoruba people as a group, to build up the Igbos as a master race, to magnify his own vaunted contributions to the nationalist struggles, to dwarf and misrepresent the achievements of his contemporaries, and to discount and nullify the humble but sterling quota which older politicians had made to the country's progress. It's the same template. We're going to diminish everything away that person has done. We're going to make it look as if we are the ones at the forefront of stuff. We're going to find a way to corrode the self-respect of Yoruba people and attack their culture to make them feel less than who they are, even though we are less than who they are. The man whose voice you heard earlier, that was actually Barrister Femi Falana. You know Gani Fawemi, you know them Kutis, whether it was Olikoye or Beck or Ransom Kuti or Fela himself or their mother. You know history of several people in Yoruba land who have actually stood up. I mentioned Pastor Bakari earlier. Mr. Dumaki is late now. That's Joe Dumaki's husband. Joe Dumaki, of course, is also, an activist in our own right. You know all these people who have a long history supporting Peter. Just allow someone say even Tinubu himself, Nadeko. Right? So all the history we have of the 1990, 1992, 93, all the way to end of Abacha struggle, what time here, we should remove that from history books because it's not favoring Peter Obi. I'm saying this to your Bible because, sometimes we hear these guys, they just give you this emotional argument and make it look as if, oh, there's something that you have done you have to appease us. Like you're nothing as far as history is concerned. When it comes to you creating this idea of who you were not, you went that thing. And your people have no reason to apologize to anybody or to try and prove. And that's why you see people say they want to go and protest because they're trying to prove to this person that, listen, we too, we are not, if you are saying our fathers are not protesting, that's what will make young people say things like they have messed with the wrong generation. We are different from our fathers. Do you even know who your fathers were? There's this thing that happens, and it's okay if you're young, if you're I don't want to say if you're young, if you're, let's say you are first, second year of uni, or even if you're in uni, it's okay because blood they hot when you're in school. I get it. Blood they hot. So everybody wants to prove something that they are better than their parents. But there's a particular level you get to in life where you actually ask yourselves, what did my father do? And don't assume that they were just stupid people that you are the ones who want to redeem the past. There's nothing to redeem. Fight your own war. By the way, one man who is not Yoruba, who also was one of the activists that I kind of respect, I really actually respect him, is Barrister Bakuba. He said something during the NSAS, stuff. There was a conference organized by Pastor Pojo. I was there. It was platform. And Bakuba said he told his children that this thing that you are doing, this is not how people protest. They told him, no, that's your generation. We have a different generation. He said, you are eating rice. You're having parties. They will not take you seriously. They say, I don't need to. It's not your generation. Anything that makes you think that the older generation knows nothing is the thing that will make you fail. All of that to say this. These guys that come up with this idea of, your Bible owing them something, and that until we speak up, then we have not done anything, they are not serious. And as a Yoruba person, don't be carried away by all this, nonsense. All right, there's another video I want to play, and that I don't know what this one was thinking, but I think he thought he should lend his voice. And by the way, if you notice, everybody's always attacking Yoruba people now. It's amazing. Great Time says, do you remember Kunle Adepeju, SUG President UI? Sincerely, I would probably think more of OAU. The last time I started thinking of that I knew what was going on with SUG UI was when Arishekola was in UI and he was attacked. His vehicle, it was in UI. I don't know the exact event, but it was in UI. He had this armored plated car and UI students destroyed it. That was the last thing I remember as far as UI student union is concerned. Someone on Facebook says Agbakoba is not an Igbo though. I don't even know his ethnicity, sincerely. Some people say he is, some people say he's not. But I respect him as a person. But I know that he is, I don't know his ethnicity, but even if he is an Igbo, how many of them were involved in protests against the government? Even during Abacha's period, how many Igbos were involved? I'm not saying there is none. You'll probably find 1, 2, 3, some you can pick. Bumblebee says Edo. The name sounds Edo, but the way, I don't want to get into ethnicity. I'll look for the ethnicity. You know what? Let's look for it. Before we go and start something, I think it's Igbo actually. The point is, whether it's Igbo or not Igbo, is what he said about respecting people who have gone ahead makes sense. Ever participated in protests in Nigeria or in activism in Nigeria? When it comes to activism, as far as Nigeria is concerned, the ethnicity that champions it for the most part are Yoruba people. Are you going to find other ethnicities? Of course, you'll find nothing as gone self. You find folks from the belt. You find Igbos too. But they are not known to, some that election 1993, ordinary pay MK Abiola won. They were expecting that Yoruba people will not agree. If they don't agree, war go start. What Igbos do? They come out now. They left southwest and went back to the southeast because everybody knows their homes. They went back home. So many people actually stood to fight the federal government. Not most, not all, clearly, but most of them were Yoruba people. And I believe Odisa Bakuba is Igbo. And he's a great man. Regardless of ethnicity, he is great. But once you use ethnicity as a judge of who are the people that actually used to protest in Nigeria, you don't surface. You're not even known. This was to speak English is our one quarrel and think that they can just. By the way, I'm speaking like this because it's like it's a fad now, right? To just throw Yoruba people under the bus, even by Yoruba people themselves. Some of the clowns who are speaking on social media, it's fashionable. It makes you belong. You have a sense of belonging with your fellow clowns. You know, you're able to say, okay, we've done it today. Next, excuse me. We've done it today. Next, like who's the next person you're going to? And if you're going to insult somebody, you have to find a way to insult your people. So those people are going to begin to speak to them, and I'm sure they're going to get the message. Here's another one who, for some reason, thought that it was cool to do what he did. Here's a video. I think he even speaks Yoruba, but again, ability to speak Yoruba does not mean you're really thinking straight. It just means that you are not. It's more than being able to speak English. Sorry, people are writing things in the comment section. I don't want to read it before I change the topic. Anyway, listen to this one.
Of the Yorubas, on the other hand, but you see, on the side of the Yorubas, on the other hand, no matter how exposed where Yoruba man be, in fact, it be like saying that the elite itself, the ones when go school pass, when live abroad pass, you can see back to Nigeria, it go still be tribal bigots. See why they talk, there's exception to the rule, but mostly, generally, Yoruba people waiting make their own bigotry, tribal bigotry bad. They say the people when suppose know, enlightened people, they themselves too fall short of the same thing. They are tribal bigots. So online, most of these Igbos, where they see online, they're going to insult you. We know their level of education. We know where they belong. Igbo man when go school, Igbo man where they prepared. If you tell them anything, this thing go try debate with you, tell you say this one, he go draw your attention to certain things. Now so it be. And why this thing they happen? Be say now the culture of both tribes now because the Igbos by nature are a cephalous people, kind of as they say. You see, on the side of the Yorubas, on the other hand, no matter how exposed where Yoruba man be, in fact, it be like saying that the elite itself, the ones when go school pass, when live abroad pass, you can see a Yoruba man will be mayor for New York, will be mayor for London. If you come back to Nigeria, it will still be tribal bigots. See why they talk, there's exception to the rule, but mostly, generally, Yoruba people waiting make their own bigotry, tribal bigotry bad. They say, the people when suppose know, enlightened people, they themselves too fall short of the same thing. They are tribal bigots. So most of these people when they see online, most of these Igbos, when they see online, when they say before you talk, they're going to insult you. We know their level of education. We know where they belong. Igbo man when go school, Igbo man where they prepared. If you tell them anything, this thing go try debate with you, tell you say this one, he go draw your attention to certain things. Now so it be. And why this thing they happen? Be say now the culture was by nature a cephalous people, kind of respect a central authority. That is why you go see Igbo man. This one they talk this one, this one they talk this one. Even for their place, the chief, the rich man go talk this one, the other one go answer and talk the other one. The Yorubas are not like that. The Yorubas on their own side. The Yorubas have a central system of government whereby somebody, an Oba or their leader says something and they all have to adhere to it without even questioning it. Kind of. That is, whatever the king says is what is the rule. You understand? So anybody that finds himself in the position of authority, whether in a crook, even in the garage, all these garage where they see all these touts when they did there, they get their head. Anything where you talk, the rest not tell and say no be like that. That is, the Yorubas have that kind of a thing. They make their own kind of tribalism. They somehow, they deep rooted. It's like it's a cultural thing.
Actually operates. This is madness. So you start by saying things like, "Oh, no, this is madness for real." You can speak English and still, find a way to package insanity. So Yoruba people are tribalists, no matter how educated we are. You know what? At this point, you are right. So what are you going to do about it? You are right. If you speaking up makes you a tribalist, like a person can go years, right, just insulting and denigrating your heritage. You can't speak. Once you don't speak, you're not a tribalist. Once you speak up, you're not a tribalist for insulting people. You're not a tribalist for essentially cornering things. Let me use that Igbo Nigeria. When you corner things for your people, your clannish mindset, you're not a tribalist. When you ensure that once you become the head of an organization, federal government organization or state government organization, you ensure that only your ethnicity are brought into that place. You are not a tribalist for doing that, which is what Igbos are known to do, like historically, even till today. Like, and if you want receipts, there are receipts for days, okay? But no, that's not tribalism. Tribalism is that you dared speak up, like you're going to actually speak back. You're a tribalist. How are you going to? So here's the thing. He said that Igbos are selfless. By the way, it's just a big English word for headless. There's nobody that can actually be the authority is not in anyone. And everybody is Oga. So that means that everybody that you see online that just meaning they didn't go to school, it's a lie. Or the people that are always insulting people and cursing you out, they didn't go to school, they just saw this boy, they don't really understand anything. But if you really see an Igbo person that went to school, they will engage you and you're going to have a conversation. But all these Yoruba people, even the educated, they're always like that. So here's this, let me quickly help you. Again, this is to attack your heritage. It's our culture because we used to have king. This is stupid. Having king does not mean that the king is an absolute monarch. Okay, the king also has checks and balances, but you wouldn't understand that because you guys are primitives. But it's important to say this: if you're talking about questioning authority, like I said earlier, just because you have a king who, if you don't have something, you won't understand what it is. You're just looking for everything that you can use to discredit it. Kingship, monarchy, does not mean absolute authority. It doesn't mean there are no checks and balances. In Yoruba land, we do have checks and balances. Okay, so the king, we have something, we have the judiciary that actually, would execute execute the law, interpret the law and execute the law. You have people that actually make the law. It's not just everything that. It's not like all the powers are reposed in the king. He has a cabinet. He has people that can question him. If he does anything, they can ask him, but you wouldn't know that. Assume that, okay, because they're Yoruba people, if you go to a park and a park guy says do something, but that means all of them are going to do it. Of course, because before they come out to do something, they would have disagreed if they have to. Ninule. In Yoruba land, we have a saying, Tomo yabeji bajade. It means that if two brothers, right, or two siblings, smiling, it means they've not told themselves the truth. In other words, if you see one of them frowning or both of them frowning, it means that they've actually had a conversation that's uncomfortable. Whatever disagreements we're going to have, we will have it before we decide on what we want to do. Once we decide on what to do, we will do it. And I've said it several times, all this Oyinbo we are speaking on social media, the Agberos you are insulting, they will be the ones who deal with you guys. And on the Gbebo, there's something he said I wanted to actually speak on, because he said a lot of nonsense. And that the thing they do is, Yoruba also have it too, but Igbo own is because they are headless. But these Yoruba people, they're always sounding the same thing. You see, there's something that they try to do. When you see the Igbo person on the internet talking like this and insulting you, is because it's uneducated. That's not true. When you see the Yoruba person speaking, even if he's educated, there's a difference you will notice if the Yoruba person is actually educated. Number one, is most likely trying to debunk whatever stupid claims you are putting all over the place because you are supposed to be a perpetual victim. That's number one. Number two, it's most likely going to be on an intellectual basis. Well, there'll be Yoruba people that also insult people on social media. And you're wrong. You're but the idea that educated Yoruba people are speaking up because they are bigots is just nonsense. Okay, you cannot say rubbish and expect not to be responded to. That. In other words, people have to keep quiet because you are a victim or because you're supposed to. Not even in my opinion, in my experience, every ethnicity, all this Yoruba people thing is rubbish. There are good people from every ethnicity. There are smart people, knowledgeable people in every ethnicity. But that doesn't mean nothing when it comes to this conversation. There are educated Igbos who hold on to who say certain things in Nigeria, and I expect that people should keep quiet because they are victims from the civil war, and even the narratives from the civil war they are holding on to. Now, life, the day I read, I'm going to mention two people. One of them I really, really do respect. The other one I don't care for. I don't care for Chinua Achebe, but I respect Dora Queen. I definitely respect a lot. What's the name of this WTO director? Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. Read, I don't even know if I should tell you to read that book. If you read the book by Chinua Achebe, the last one he wrote, There Was a Country, it's a propaganda tool. If I ever had any respect for that man, reading that book just made all the respect just evaporate. Why? Because there is no way on earth a man is leaving the earth and he chose to leave behind a legacy of propaganda, to leave the next generation in a place of perpetual victimhood just because you want to stay true to who you were and what you were doing during the war. Achebe was a Biafran propagandist. He worked in Radio Biafra. So that on your deathbed, you are still writing a book that will perpetuate falsehood. I don't respect such people. Now, is he not educated? Or was he not educated? He was. His books have traveled all over the world. This fantastic one, what's it called? Things Fall Apart. He should have just been true to his story writing. Even the story writing itself, when you read Man of the People, you know there's no way you will read Man of the People and you will not know that he was actually writing the manifesto for the January 15 coup. The book was published the same month, January of 1966. And he was saying he just looked as if it was true, like he knew. Some people like he was a prophet. Prophet how? He was predicting what was going to happen as though he knew what was going to happen, because he knew what was going to happen. And if you think I'm lying, maybe we won't do it today. Who knows? I'll look for that book. I'll read it to you if we have time. If not, some other time. But you can get the book, Man of the People. That is novel that they published in 66. People will just be moving like a jula, they will be like a serpent, and then acting as if they are so smart. He kept lying to the people even on his deathbed. He was still writing propaganda for everybody. He has left them in that state. May God heal them. The second person I want to mention is somebody I actually do respect, and which is actually what makes it more disappointing. Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala is one of the most brilliant economists that I think Nigeria has produced. But when it comes to history, she also carried the propaganda from people like Achebe. Read the book she wrote, herself and another gentleman. The book is titled Chinua Achebe, Teacher of Light. It's in that book that she wrote something that even Achebe would have been like, wow, did I say that? Like, did we really believe that? You know what? Be like I say I'm talking. Let me find you that stuff and read those things to you. It's going to take me a bit because I didn't prepare for this. Because according to this clown, it's only uneducated Igbos who make up stuff. The educated ones, don't get involved. It's a lie. I really hope I find this thing. I would love to read it to you guys. Okay, yeah, come on, baby. I'm going to read to you what Achebe said in his book. Then I'm going to read to you what Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala said in her book, and tell me if they are the average Joes and Janes on the streets, or if they're actually the creme de la creme of Igbo society. Even though Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala is not from the southeast, but somehow I think she also got to drink the Kool-Aid. Let me read to you what Achebe said. The Civil War cast a long dark shadow on Nigeria. This is from his book, There Was a Country. The Civil War cast a long shadow on Nigeria. A generation of our children has grown up on a steady diet of false history and lies about the war. That's what he did. He worked the Radio Biafra. What is that going to dish out? Diet of false history, right? So he says, a generation of our children has grown up on a steady diet of false history and lies about the war. One example is the belief among many that Chief Obafemi Awolowo was a savior and a hero. My aim here is not to denigrate Awolowo, who was a foremost nationalist and a political leader, but to say that we cannot sweep his role in the war under the carpet. Let me tell you something. There's nothing Awolowo did during the war that was wrong. Nothing. If you like, Larry Moshia. I could have said chair, but that's Yoruba way of saying share. He goes on to say, it is my view that Awolowo was driven by overriding ambition for power and that he saw the dominant Igbos at the time as obstacles. Now, how were Igbos dominant and there were obstacles in 1967 when Awolowo was just coming out of prison after what happened in 1966? In other words, for any thinking person, you look at timelines in history. In January of 66, Igbos had that coup. It was an Igbo coup. It was an Igbo coup. They always insulted me. I don't care. It was an Igbo coup, and I can prove it. People have sent me some videos from some supposed educated people who are very unbiased, but who are Igbos, who are always telling people, why do you think they say it's an Igbo coup? Just to they just say, what do you think the Igbo coup? The person now did a video and said the coup was planned by Ozogu. I said, and you say you are educated. Say it was not an Igbo coup. That's your business. It's an Igbo coup. Now, in July, there was a counter coup by the Northerners. All this time, I was in prison. I was in prison. They already put Awo in prison in 1963. This back and forth between the North and the East was in 66. Awo came out August 3rd of 1966, and then by May, in fact before May, he was already trying to play that reconciliatory or the mediatory role. I said, what's the word? What's the right word? He was trying to mediate. I think that's a better way to put it. He was trying to mediate between Nigeria and the East. May 6 and 7, he went to Enugu to talk to Ojukwu. This is the same person that Achebe is saying here that he was driven by an overriding ambition for power, and he saw the dominant Igbos at the time as obstacles. How were Igbos dominant at the time Awo was coming out of prison? How? And what threat were Igbos to Awo or the West? You were not threat to anybody. Shakin Shebiora. Then he says here, he is said to have once declared, this is Achebe writing about Papa. He said to have once declared that if the Eastern region seceded, the West would also secede. But when secession came, the West did not follow through. What did you notice? Achebe said, listen to what he said though. He is said to have once declared. My question to Achebe would be that how old were you when he supposedly said this thing that could have declared, or that he probably declared? How old were you at the time? What do you mean he is said to have declared? Where were you? Were you a child? Did you not know exactly what he said? But you see, if you're a propagandist, you don't care for the truth. You just need a bit of it to make a point. You take a bit of truth, you spice it up with a lot of lies, and then you present it to people as a meal. So you say things like, he was said to have said, he was said to have once declared that if the Eastern region, I'm sorry, he said to have once declared that if the Eastern region seceded, the West would also secede. Awo never said this, but Achebe wrote it in his book. Younger Igbos read this nonsense and then they get angry, and when you respond, you are the bigot, you are the tribalist, because you're supposed to just listen to them because they are victims. I'm going to tell you what Awo said later, but that was Achebe's idea of the truth, which is a lie. Let me read you what Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala said. This book is called Achebe, Teacher of Light. And this is what she said. The Civil War broke out on May 30, 1967. That's not true. Even the very first line is not true. There was no civil war in Nigeria until July 10, 1967. Ojukwu declared Biafra on May 30th, but there was no war until July. So the first line from somebody I actually respect happens to be false. Now, does that mean that I don't respect her anymore? Of course I do. I wish I was even an economist. I would really, maybe she would be like one of my role models, but she's not my role model. Just someone that I respect. I think she's done fantastically well with her life. So that's great, right? But when it comes to history, it doesn't mean that thing actually you can transpose it from World Trade Organization to Nigerian history. The very first line is false. She said the Civil War broke out on May 13, 1967. That did not happen until July 10. So she said, let me just read what she said. The Civil War broke out on May 13, 1967, when the Igbos in the southeast, under Colonel Emeka Odumegwu Ojukwu, declared Biafra an independent state with Enugu chosen as its capital. Biafra also had its own national currency. The Igbos had made this secessionist move with a promise from Chief Obafemi Awolowo. I'm talking very fast. The Igbos had made this secessionist move with a promise from Chief Obafemi Awolowo in the southwest that the Yorubas would follow suit. The plan was, if the southeast and southwest broke away from Nigeria, from the Nigerian Federal Union, the federal government would not be able to fight a war on two fronts. Awolowo, however, failed to honor his pledge, and the secession proved a nightmare for the Igbos. Awolowo, in fact, became the Minister of Finance of the federal government during the Civil War. The Igbos interpreted this as a sign of bad faith on the part of a Yoruba leader, and trust was further eroded between the two ethnic groups. The Yorubas, using superior federal military power in alliance with the North and other Nigerian groups, and supported by the British, forced the Igbos back into the Federal Union after a period of 3 years. Now, when you read that as a Yoruba person, if you are like me, who respects Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, you say, how could I have done this? Now you're feeling bad. Now you're like, Dr. Ngozi cannot lie. She cannot lie. We know who she is. Komata. So let's try and explain this thing. Now, you remember how did we get here? The guy said it's the uneducated people that are always lying and insulting people on social media. The educated ones will sit you down and tell you, well, these are the educated ones. I mean, there are many books, so I just want to talk about this too, with Achebe and Iweala. Now, he said Igbos made the move with the promise from Awolowo. There is nowhere on earth, and no sane person should ask me. Well, no sane person will ask me, because people have this stupid thing of how old were you when it happened, as if they were alive. Some of them are Christians and Muslims. Were you alive when Jesus was around, or when Muhammad? So, if you were not around, just listen. Don't ask me that question. I'm preempting some people who ask that kind of funny question. But here's the point. There's no record anywhere on this earth where Awo promised Ojukwu that if the East moved, the West would move. Number one, it is disrespectful to me as a Yoruba person for a person to tell me that nonsense. That if Igbos do something, Yorubas will do it. Say what happened. This was 1967. 4 years prior, Okpara was just forcing people to wear clothes in Enugu. How are you going to expect me to do something just because you want to do it? In terms of civilization, we are different levels. I'm not saying one is better than the other, but you can figure out which one is better than the other. You're just trying to figure out, you don't even understand statecraft. You have no idea how to negotiate, because they already had Aburi at this point too. Aburi was in January 4 and 5, 1967. There was already decree number 8 on March 17, 1967. Decree number 8 that Ojukwu rejected. So I will now come and meet you in May and tell you that whatever you want to do, we'll do the same thing. Based on what? It never happened. But a world-renowned economist wrote it down in a book that it happened. There is a book, I won the Nigerian Civil War. There's a quote by M.C. Ajuluchukwu, because Ajuluchukwu was in that meeting. They had a meeting before the main meeting. Now, the meeting before the meeting, he was there. The meeting itself, the transcript is here. The transcript of our meetings in this book. Everything they discuss is inside this book. The meeting that now happened after the meeting, that one, you find it in the book by Wole Soyinka. So there's a meeting before the meeting. MC Ajuluchukwu was there. They didn't talk about any promises. The meeting itself, where Awolowo was supposed to have promised him something, is here. There's no record of any promise made by Awo to Igbo people. The other meeting that they had in the middle of the night, when, like I always say, Ojukwu Nicodemously went to Awolowo's chalet to ask him for whatever favors. And I've mentioned it a number of times. Give me a second. I hope I find it quickly. It's in a book by Wole Soyinka. The book is You Must Set Forth at Dawn. As I'm talking right now, I'm a bigot, I'm a tribalist. I know, I don't. The point is that they can lie on your fathers, they can insult your ancestry, denigrate your heritage. Don't speak. If you don't speak, you are a good man. If you speak up, you are a bigot. I'll find you that page. Dear. It was where Papa was telling Professor Soyinka what happened when Ojukwu came to meet him and what Ojukwu asked for and what Awo actually asked for. I've seen a part of it where one second. I didn't plan to do this, so it's going to take me a bit to find you that page. Okay, I found it. This is You Must Set Forth at Dawn by Wole Soyinka. Awolowo received me in his office, which was dominated by a massive desk. It seemed even more substantial than it had 2 years before. Let me just jump. Awolowo's eyes lit up with childlike mischief, eager for details at the mention of Mazi Okonu, the leader of the broadcasting team and a well-known radio comedian. Give me a second, please. Found it. The 1967, so this is what I really want to read. The 1967 Eve of Secession Delegation of National Public Figures, authorized by Yakubu Gowon to engage in a dialogue with the Eastern leadership, had been led by Obafemi Awolowo, and the formal, well-publicized meeting between the two sides had lasted nearly all day. The Easterners had listed their grievances and demands, spoken with all apparent seriousness, and seen their guests off to their chalets. Later that night, however, Awolowo was disturbed by a knock on the door. It was Ojukwu himself. 1 second, please. Excuse me, please. There's a boy who probably thinks his dad is here. Let's send him back home. God be with you till we meet again. All right, let me start again. The 1967 Eve of Secession Delegation of National Public Figures, authorized by Yakubu Gowon to engage in dialogue with the Eastern leadership, had been led by Obafemi Awolowo, and the formal, well-publicized meeting between the two sides had lasted nearly all day. The Easterners had listed their grievances and demands, spoken with all apparent seriousness, and seen their guests off to their chalets. Later that same night, however, Awolowo was disturbed by a knock on the door. It was Ojukwu himself. He admitted that he had waited till late into the night so as to be able to speak to Awolowo in strictest privacy. Sure, said Awolowo, but he also insisted, thank God for wise elders, he also insisted that at least 1 or 2 persons join him. That was agreed, and Awolowo called the adjoining chalet and woke up the police commissioner for the Western region, Olufunwa, and a close political aide. Accompanying Ojukwu was a small team that included a professor of history from the University of Ibadan, who, like other Easterners, had fled to their beleaguered state. You can make up who that professor of history was. Years afterward, in 1996, during the struggle against the Abacha dictatorship, the same Don introduced himself to me at a meeting in the United States and reviewed his participation in the nocturnal meeting of 30 years earlier. His account was a consistent and detailed confirmation of what Awolowo confided in me that afternoon. Odumegwu Ojukwu's mission was unambiguous, Awolowo told me. The young man had come to inform me This is Papa speaking. The young man had come to inform me that the East had decided on secession, that there was no going back. All that was left was the announcement of a date. He said, "Sir, I have come not to argue, but to inform you it has been decided." This was Ojukwu speaking to Awo on the night of the 7th. When I'm done, maybe I'll read to you what happened before the meeting on the 6th and 7th, okay? It's in this book. Now, at the Bari meeting, Baba was in his room. He went to say to him, it has already been decided. This was not, are you going to do something? Should we do something because you want to do something? No, he was telling Awo what they wanted to do. You should read this other book. I'm going to continue. If you can, again, please join our Telegram channel, Radio Me Global, and look for the book, Ojukwu's Rebellion and World Opinion. You will see exactly how Ojukwu arrived at breaking out of Nigeria. It had nothing to do with Awolowo. Had nothing to do with Yoruba people. But if you are supposed to be a perpetual victim, you always be looking for people to blame for your predicament. Let's get back to this one. Listen to this. The young man, that's Ojukwu, had come to inform me that the East had decided on secession and that there was no going back. All that was left was the announcement of a date. He said, quote, "Sir, I have come not to argue, but to inform you it has been decided," end of quote. It was all clear that any discussion was futile. Awolowo continued, "After all, we had done nothing but talk all day." Ojukwu confessed that he had agreed to meet the delegation at all only out of respect for my person. Biafra had already made a decision. I was not surprised, the chief admitted. I did one thing though. I made one request of him. In fact, I insisted on it. I said to Ojukwu, at least let us in the West, me specifically, have a minimum of 2 weeks notice before you announce the decision. And he promised, yes, he promised me that much. The question you should ask yourself is that, did Ojukwu tell anybody that he was going to leave out? I mean, this was on the 7th. Did he give Awolowo 2 weeks notice? No. All we know was that by May 30th, he unilaterally declared Biafra. The only thing that Awo asked for was actually a promise from Ojukwu. Awo did not make a promise to Ojukwu. He got like a promise, or from Ojukwu, asking Ojukwu to inform us in the Western region 2 weeks before declaring Biafra. He didn't inform anybody. He then went to town to say, Awolowo promised him something. So, in fact, let me read something to you. This is not today's topic, but we are here now, aren't we? Let me read to you from Ajuluchukwu. The visits to Enugu on May 5, 1967 by Awo and his conversations with Colonel Odumego Ojukwu, military governor of Eastern Nigeria, have been the subject of continuing public debate ever since. Incidentally, I had the opportunity of holding some informal discussions with the chief for 3 hours on the morning of May 6. In fact, we concluded our talks at 10:50 a.m., only 10 minutes before his first meeting with Ojukwu, and I happened to be around in an adjoining room when their private conversations took place on that and on the following day, May 7. I should therefore be in a position to testify from first-hand knowledge that at no time during that turbulent crisis did Awo harbor any thoughts or take any actions other than those calculated to encourage the continuing identification of the Igbos as an integral part of Nigeria, even if for a trial period of a confederal linkage. At the same time, I felt certain then, after listening to him, that should the Igbos be pushed or forced out, he would be willing to lead the West out too, and with the East, Midwest, and Lagos help to organize a Southern condominium. That's what he said he felt certain about. Didn't say Awo said it. And I'll read to you what Awo actually said. In fact, let me finish this one first. It says here, perhaps the most striking declaration made by Chief Awolowo during the first day of his talks with Ojukwu was the assurance regarding the safety of all Eastern Nigerians in the West and Lagos. The transcript of that recorded statement of May 6, 1967 is as follows. Nobody can tell, this is Papa speaking, nobody can tell when life will be lost. But I think speaking in the minds, I'll take that again. Nobody can tell when life will be lost. But I think speaking in the minds of the entire people of Western Nigeria and Midwestern Nigeria, that if anybody can at this stage take the life of an Igbo man or an Easterner, or if any outstanding Easterner loses his life by the act of someone else, the whole of the Western Western region and the Midwestern region will take it as the end of Nigeria. I can give that assurance on behalf of Western Nigeria and Lagos. Essentially trying to protect Igbos in Yoruba land. Still they call him a bigot. But what did Awo actually say that caused all this nonsense that they're always carrying all over the place? But before I read that, I want to read something from Ajuluchukwu before I read Papa's statement. I'll continue reading Ajuluchukwu stuff. It says, it is now left to the people of the eastern states, particularly the Igbos, to bear witness to the fact that Chief Awolowo did indeed fulfill his promises in this crucial matter of life and death and program. Furthermore, there was no doubt about Chief Awolowo having given a solemn undertaking that under certain express conditions, the West would also pull out of the Nigerian Federation where the Eastern region to secede. That's not what Awo said. Again, I'm telling you that they are misquoting, but I'll tell you what Awo said eventually. But contrary to widely held belief, especially in Igbo land, he did not make that pronouncement at his meeting with Odumegwu Ojukwu. The transcript of their conversations contains nothing of the kind. If you want to see the transcript, please buy this book, Awo on the Nigerian Civil War. You find this book on our Telegram bookshop, Redomi Books. Every single thing they said, who spoke, when, Dr. Aluko, Sir Francis Ibiam, Professor Njoku, Professor Aluko, Chief Awolowo, Mr. Mojeku, His Excellency, that's Odumegwu Ojukwu, all the things they discussed, and BB, at no time in that conversation did Awolowo promise anybody anything. So he says here that the transcript of the conversations contain nothing of the kind. Rather, the undertaking was given by Awo at a meeting of the Western Nigerian leaders of thought held at Ibadan in May 1967. In it, he said, the Eastern region must be encouraged to remain part of the Federation. And this is what Papa actually said. If the Eastern region is allowed by acts of omission or commission to secede from or opt out of Nigeria, then the Western region and Lagos must also stay out of the Federation. This was after the meeting in Enugu. This statement he gave in Ibadan. The full statement is in the book by Odugua. The book is called Awolowo, the Political Moses. You find the entire thing there. You find the entire. I want to find you the first name of that gentleman. Adedara Odugua. The book is titled Chief Obafemi Awolowo, the Political Moses. And here he says, if the Eastern region is allowed, the full speech is there, but we're not going to read everything here. It says, if the Eastern region is allowed by any act of omission or commission to secede from or opt out of Nigeria, then the Western region and Lagos must also stay out of the Federation. He made this statement August 16, 9 days after his meeting with Ojukwu. He did not tell Ojukwu this. He said this thing in Ibadan, and he was addressing the federal government. Why? How do I know? If the region is allowed, who can allow them to go? They cannot allow themselves to leave. He did not say, if you go, we're going to follow you. Number one, who are you that your people will follow the East? See, if you read Nigerian history, some of the things that people say, it just make you feel as if you feel disrespected on behalf of your elders. Like, what are you talking about? You don't even have enough understanding to come up with the plans that you need. If you read the book by H.M. Green, where Anthony Nauro was reporting what happened, he said, he told Awolowo that, listen, that he had built the largest army in Black Africa. It was just boasting. Nothing concrete, nothing strategic. Everything just unzobu. So how will a Yoruba man carry his Yoruba group? Even though at this time he was even a civilian, it's not like he had weapons. That was Papa. How will he now carry his people and follow you because you are doing something when you don't even understand what you are doing? One. Number two, when he asked you to give 2 weeks notice, you didn't even give any notice. So how exactly, like, these are the things that you now sit down and say, and you're like, surely Dr. Okonjo-Iweala did not write the truth. Does that reduce her brilliance as an economist? Of course not. Does that mean I should believe everything she says? Of course not. So they are telling you, don't fight or don't fight. They say, I built the largest army in Black Africa. I can conquer anything. I can do anything. The guy doesn't have guns. The guns, the first set of guns that Ojukwu bought, it was the money that Nigeria gave him to take care of his own people. who had returned to the eastern region. £500,000. It's in the book by A.H.M. Green, Crisis and Conflict in Nigeria, Anthony Nauro's page, 12 August 1968. The person that they give money, they buy guns, they tell everybody, say, he don't build the strongest army in Black Africa. Now, here's the point. Let's come back home. Awolowo's warning to the federal government has been adopted and appropriated as a promise to Igbo people. And that's been repeated so much so that a person becomes a PhD holder and did not even bother to fact check. She just publishes in our book. But as a Yoruba person, we have a duty to not question, as long as we don't want to be called tribalist. Since the doctor said it, it must be correct. And since the person who said it is an Igbo person who suffered during the war, they must be correct. No. Most likely they are wrong. As a matter of fact, I used to give people benefit of the doubt. But with the many books I've read from that side of town, I still give people benefit of the doubt, Sha. But I'm usually disappointed. Let me just put it that way. Like, they most likely will disappoint you. Make you feel as if you're even a fool to believe that something good can come out of Nazareth. It's just lies. All of that to say this, when you go back to the video we started with, the guy said, it's only the uneducated people who say this nonsense and insult everybody. No. What I have discovered, studying Nigeria's history, is that the uneducated people actually look up to the educated people for the narratives they're going to believe. Whatever they put in their mouth is what they say. And this is where I give grace to the uneducated Igbo person and the young ones. They are telling you what they heard, the educated ones, the creme de la creme, the elite, what they said is what they are saying. And you begin to wonder, how do you judge a person for regurgitating propaganda? Of course, once you go to school, you should be able to also question things. There are things they say in my own history as a Yoruba person, even the history of 1,000 years ago. I want to understand why they even said it. When I was studying what happened in Ife in 10th century, how could this have happened? So what did I do? I went to look for other books to try and understand. So what books did I read? What were professors, the history professors that done research, the archaeologists, what did they discover? How do I actually understand what happened? Not to be crying like a baby all over the place, saying, see what they did to me. Someone says they have forgotten that lives were lost from the Nigerian side too. Thank you, Sinchin. Before the war started, Igbos had already killed people in present-day Benue State and Kogi, particularly Benue. The Idoma saw when in the hands before the war began. It was on a Sunday morning. They had gone to kill people there. These people went to the Midwest, killed people, including Yoruba people in Benin, including lepers. There's a lepers colony around the Siomo River, where you have the Edo and Yoruba on one side, and then you have the Igbos on one side. The Biafran forces went through a lepers colony, crossed the river to the other side, and killed as many lepers who were Yoruba and Benin that they could handle, or Edo that they could touch, just killing them. Lepers. Killed ourselves. Went to Ueli, to Sapele, to Wari, to Bini, just constituting nuisance. Traveled all the way to Ondo, to Ore. Killed people. Oh. You said you want to fight a war. It's a war. But now they kill people. When they can't kill you, can't they say that the people are bad? What should they do? It's the same thing you see on social media. Like we can insult you. I'm not even going to insult anybody, to be honest, because I'd rather send you home. But the point is, you can just pour out your own narrative or shoot your own guns, but nobody should respond. If they respond, they are tribalists. It makes no sense. And I'm not expecting them to change, by the way, just to be clear. This is not for anybody to change. It's just for Yoruba people to understand the fact that once you get in, once you get and the way to do it is to just appeal to your emotions. See what we did. Awolowo promised us. Awolowo promised you nothing. So you're not compassionate. We are compassionate when it comes to people who suffered the tragic death on all sides, the malnutrition. You can see that stuff and actually acknowledge what happened. Now, I can do that and not change history in order to make you feel comfortable. That's the thing. So I can acknowledge the pains and feel bad about it, but I will never, as a Nigerian, never apologize for anything that happened during the war. Never. All this, I saw a video, I'll see if I can find it. Guy said until Nigerians apologize something for it to Igbos, nothing will go. If we are really keeping it a buck in this country, Igbos should be apologizing to the country for the next 1,000 years. And I said it. You don't see, if you're an Igbo man, I'm not saying it's your fault. You probably didn't even know what happened. Your parents or your grandparents probably suffered for it. But it's like when we talk about what happened in Nazi Germany, it's not like every German decided to do everything. I mean, there are good Germans. But does that mean that we should now say that we should change the story and make Hitler look like a very good man because it's going to make some people feel? Like I was saying, that Nigeria should apologize. No Nigerian, well, if you're Yoruba specifically, there is no basis for any apologies. You can show, what's it called now? You can show empathy. You can show compassion. But why would you apologize when you are not responsible for the carnage? That's the point. I'm married later. Play for you. All of that to bring us back to this. Someone says, I wish Okonjo-Iweala could be challenged to a debate or substantiate a justification for the book. Okonjo-Iweala was not even an adult when the war was going on. I think she was born in 1948 or 50 something, thereabout. She was not an adult. Let me confirm. When was Okonjo-Iweala born? So I said that to say that what she will say also will be what she heard. So I'm not saying that she's younger, because she's our mother, as far as age is concerned. Someone says, I'm not showing any compassion for something with the star. You still have to show compassion now. Compassion means that you see somebody suffering and your heart goes out to them. 1954, thank you, Greater Me. So at the time the war started, Prof was out 13 years. So it's what they told her. Yes, 1954 June. It's what they told her that she was shaking it. Prof, you could do a book review to debunk it. I already did a proper video. Did Awolowo betray the Igbos? It's on Spotify and on YouTube. Or maybe I'm going to just write a book to debunk it. No problem. You know what? I think we should even start with that one. I think we should start with it. Anyway, the point is that we are not going to get carried away by what that person is saying. Where he said it is the uneducated people who propagate falsehood and insult people, but are the educated ones who want to take it. I have not seen one Igbo person. In fact, let me. Okay, I've seen only one Igbo person who actually talked about books. Until the book stopped favoring him, then the beast came out. It comes to my comment section every day. Only one man said, and this is not to say there's only one Igbo person that reads books, so of course there are many. I'm sure there'll be objective folks, but they can't speak up for the most part. Some of them are beginning to speak up right now. That's really beautiful. At the end of the day, why do I do this? Number one, to reclaim Awo as a person, because they have tried. And the funny thing, it's just the lies against Awo Oti Poju. And when people lie about Awo like that, it's not because of Awo, it's because of you. If you cannot look up to him, you have nothing to copy from him, and he's the greatest politician from this side of the world. So if you denigrate him, that means that you cannot look up to him. That means that you have to find your hero amongst them who have lesser people than yours, and it's a fact. And I'm not saying this out of disrespect to anybody. Even Michael Okwara said it. He regretted for even following them against Awo. He said it. When I'm putting out this video, maybe I'll just put the picture there. I don't want to be looking for it because of time. All of that to say that people believe certain things from the Southeast, right? And they regurgitate it regardless of the education. They could have degrees like a thermometer. They will still regurgitate propaganda. There are exceptions, yes, but generally speaking. And instead of this person trying to heap the blame on the uneducated people, the blame actually belongs to the educated people. Because the uneducated ones did not just make things up. They said what they were told. Read The Trial of Biafra's Leaders by Nelson Otta. He said that there was mass hypnosis in the southeast. His own words, mass hypnosis. It was so bad that when the people heard shells, like people were throwing bombs into Igbo land, the people inside town were like, that's Biafran scientists testing their new equipment. They couldn't even come to live in reality. They were coming to kill them, but people in Radio Biafra were telling them that Biafran army don't take over every part of Nsukka. Meanwhile, the Nigerian army was at the doorstep in Enugu, but the people believed propaganda. And I can assure you, if you're an Igbo person, maybe we shouldn't do it now. It's a challenge, right? If you're an Igbo person, you think I'm wrong, you may be right. Please come up. I'll say this to you before you come up. Every single thing you say is a product of Radio Biafra. I'm not saying one or two. Every single thing you have believed or that you are still believing is a product of Biafra, Radio Biafra. And if you come up and you are calm and you are reasonable, we will read books together and you will see the real things that happened. Your enemy is among you. You're always looking for enemies abroad. They are within, and it's a shame that you are not taking responsibility for that. So, just to say that what that man said could make sense. The Igbos, there's another book I want to quickly recommend. I'm mentioning a lot of books. I'm tempted to read them, but because of time, The Educated Elite in Nigerian Society by E.A. Ayodele. He mentioned how these guys, you know what, let me read some, at least I've mentioned a number of books, Abi. Let me read this one. I'll find it for you. I want to read to you what Igbo elites were saying in 1968. In 1966, 1968, after Ironsi took over power, and then working. Thank you very much for the gifts. I say Bonfire, thank you very much. Thank you. By the way, I appreciate all people gifting. Thank you. I may not stop because of the flow, but I really do appreciate you. Eshegon. God bless you. It makes you now begin to feel somehow for the average Igbo person, because his belief is regurgitating absolute hogwash. But he's saying it because he believes the people who told him that. Let me give you a very funny example. A man called Okonkon Ndem. He worked in Radio Biafra. Okay? They were the ones who were churning out propaganda. At a particular point during the war, he told Igbo people that Awolowo had sent food. Thank you very much. Awolowo had sent food. These were his own words, too, but the food that Awolowo sent to Igbos, that food was poisoned. Till tomorrow, Igbos still tell us that Awolowo sent them poisoned food. They did not see the poisoned food. They did not eat the poison food. They don't have any example of a person that ate the poison food and died. They have nothing, but they'll tell you that there was poison food sent by Awolowo. Here's the crazy part. The man who told them that Awolowo sent poison food was eating the food. In actual fact, they were diverting the food from the people to the army, to the radio broadcasters, the teachers, the lecturers, the doctors, the architects. Everybody that was useful to Ojukwu had food. As a matter of fact, they had snacks. Ojukwu's children had snacks. They had toys. It is people whose grandparents were used in a very terrible way. It's a shame that would happen to human beings. They are the ones who are now supporting the ones who were eating the food that was sent to your grandfather. Crazy. They send your grandfather food. Person take the food, go chop. Let your grandpapa say that food they don't poison them. You are angry. You are like 3 generations after. You are still angry with the supposed poisoner of the food. Meanwhile, the person who tell you that nonsense, don't chop the food. Hell. That's another book, but let's just read this one. Let's stay with this one. This is from Mambo. This is from Mbeyi Collections, Biafra Newsletter, Volume 1, Number 8. 1st March 1968. But they're referring to what they wrote in May 66. These are the educated though. Educated one. Academicians. This is how the man wrote the book. In the words of the academicians themselves, all the time tribalist. This book is written by E. Ayodele. In the words of the academicians themselves, all the time tribalist, who drew up the argument for secession as early as May 1966. This is what the educated people said in Igbo land. Since the last event, unification decree, it has become crystal clear that the former leaders of the action group have, as predicted, joined forces with the former leaders of the NNDP in a renewed battle against Easterners. Recent events have further demonstrated that these leaders are clearly striving. By the way, when you see former leaders of action group joined forces with former leaders of NNDP, let me just quickly explain. NNDP was from UPP and was part of AG. So NNDP was a party that was formed by Akintola after the split with AG. So when they split, they used to call themselves UPP and later became NNDP, adopting the name of the first party by Herbert Macaulay. So by 66, all right, they had killed Akintola in January, right? Aulo was already in prison. In the beginning, by end of 65, Action Group was aligning with NCNC. NNDP was aligning with NPN to form NNA. So now, Akintola was dead, Aulo was in prison. So the leaders of AG and the leaders of NNDP were now coming together again because they were all in the same party ab initio. So that was a problem for Igbo intellectuals. So I'm going to start again. In the words of the academicians themselves, all the time tribalists, who drew up their argument for secession as early as May 1966, since the last event, this is what they said, since the last event unification decree, it has become crystal clear that the former leaders of the action group have, as predicted, joined forces with the former leaders of the NNDP in a renewed battle against Easterners. It's a lie. The battle was against NCNC, but as far as they were concerned, it was against their own ethnicity. Recent events have further demonstrated that these leaders are clearly striving to counter the efforts of the military regime to forge national unity. In this respect, the Western leaders are one with the Northern leaders, who are similarly opposed to a unitary system of government in Nigeria, and all of them are anxious that the country should revert to the old federal structure everyone knows was the principal cause of most of the wars of the First Republic. What is this telling us? In the heat of the moment, Igbo intellectuals were supporting Ironsi and telling us that what Nigeria needed was unitary system. That's why I don't respect any person that comes around and says, this Nigeria people don't know how to do government. An Igbo man is telling Nigeria that you don't know how to do Kiniko, you're doing unitary system. How did you think we got it? And to be very clear, Ironsi did not just wake up one day and say, you know what, I want to start unitary system. No. Unification decree was 15 years in the making. 1951. Ironsi was able to now do it in 1966, supported by academics and lecturers and intelligent, so to speak, intelligent elites. They said that the Western leaders and the Northern leaders want to go back to federal structure, but no, we need unity. So remember now, only recent events have further demonstrated that these leaders, that the Yoruba leaders, are clearly striving to counter the efforts of the military regime to forge national unity. When you hear the word unity, if it's from the southeast, run. It's not about unity, it's about access to resources. Someone say one-man constitutional review. The one-man constitutional review was actually from this man. The name he wrote there is actually confusing. The first name is Frank. If you had not written that name, I would have remembered you. I would have remembered the name. I'll find you the name before we leave here. It's actually quite strange that I forgot that name. Nwokedi. Thank you, Dr. Badru. Frank Nwokedi, one-man committee. No, it's not Nwabo, it's Nwokedi. One-man committee. Let me finish reading this thing. But this is not to say that the generality of the Igbo saw themselves as seekers or the Igbo leadership saw itself as exploiters of other peoples in Nigeria, the self-styled leaders and spokesmen of the Igbo people, mainly university lecturers or mainly university intellectuals, argued passionately that it would be wrong to see the Igbos as grabbers of most of the offices in the country, even though they were grabbing it too. Rightly considered, they contended they deserved to hold these posts by virtue of their special talents. They were the most receptive to new ideas. Rightly considered, they contended they deserved to hold this post by virtue of their special talents. They were superior to other ethnic groups in culture and civilization. Oh, shock me back on. In 1966, how are you superior to? They were superior to. These are lecturers. They were superior to other ethnic groups in culture and civilization. They were the most receptive to new ideas and the most able to assimilate them. It would be most unfair and unjust for any other people in Nigeria, particularly the Northerners, to wish to dominate Nigeria, for Northern Nigeria lacked education and culture and was never in a position to contribute to the advancement or progress of the country. That's from Mbeyi Collections, Biafra Newsletter, Volume 1, Number 8, 1st March 1968. The idea of a superior race is from Zik and this intellectual so-called. So when this one is saying, we got here because of the video we listened to earlier, where the guy said, this is only the riffraffs, the uneducated people that always say, no, they got it from certain people. And if you notice, those people, they didn't used to speak before, now they're beginning to speak, and when they speak, they sound exactly alike. Somebody put a picture on Twitter. It's actually quite insulting, but it's essentially saying that from the east, from the southeast, that regardless of education, I'm sure you have seen that picture, I don't have to say it, regardless, you can see a PhD holder and somebody selling things on the street, they sound like it is true when it comes to history. When it comes to their profession, of course, if you're when it comes to history, it's the same thing, because they got it from the same source, and that source is Radio Biafra. And who were in Radio Biafra? Educated people, the elites of society, e.g. Achebe, Chukwumerije, Okokon, them, who was not Igbo but who was doing too much to claim a place in the pantheon of interesting characters. Anyway, I think we've listened to that, we've responded to that one long enough. We are still on news, it's 6:24, but we've had class too. I can't tomorrow, I want around one. All right. Let's take a break by listening to Professor Shoyinka on what he hopes will happen in 2027 as far as will be contesting the election is concerned. While we're listening to this, I'm going to find you something very cool. Take a listen to this, please.
That's all. What do you think of the person, Mr. Peter Obi? What do you think? How do you think he can make it right? Do you think, what mistakes do you think he made, and do you think he has a chance?
Sorry, I didn't finish reading that thing. He has a chance. We're going to get back to the chance. I didn't finish reading that thing. I want you to let me just finish reading and be blessed. Listen and be blessed. The self-styled leaders and spokesmen of the Igbo people, mainly university intellectuals, argued passionately that it would be wrong to see the Igbo as grabbers of most of the offices in the country, even though they were grabbing. Rightly considered, they contended they deserve to hold this post by virtue of their special talents. I'm looking for that talent. I've not seen it because it's special. They were superior to other ethnic groups in culture and civilization, even though they had to just before, so we're close 3 years prior, but it's okay. They were the most receptive to new ideas and the most able to assimilate them. It would be most unfair and unjust for any other people in Nigeria, particularly the Northerners, to wish to dominate Nigeria, for Northern Nigeria lacked education and culture and was never in a position to contribute to the advancement or progress of the country. I feel insulted on behalf of the North, even though they couldn't say this about Yoruba Busha, but Northern Nigeria may have lacked Western education, but that they lacked education is not true. That they lacked culture is not true either. I don't want to speak up for the North, but it's important to mention sometimes that all these people are always throwing jabs at the North. Your fathers were swinging somewhere before. Don't worry, the North will talk about their own story. These guys are city-states centuries ago, trading across West Africa. They have no culture. Maybe Islam makes people think that the North, especially the Hausa area, is actually just Islam. There's more. But we'll talk about that some other day. Let me finish this one. The Igbo saw themselves as victims. This is where I'm going from the mindset. The Igbo saw themselves as victims of hatred and envy by other ethnic groups. They described themselves as the veritable exponents, embodiment, and vanguard of pan-Nigerianism. As exponents and teachers of the virtues of industry, cosmopolitanism, the dignity of labor, democratic process of government, and disinterested patriotism. In their opinion, the sacrifices which the Igbo had made on behalf of Nigeria were enormous. The ethnocentric Yoruba regarded the Igbo in Lagos as strangers in spite of the fact that investment opportunities were greater in Lagos, thanks to the siting in Yoruba land of the federal capital, as well as the two federal universities. The tribalism and conspiracy of the Yoruba and Hausa Fulani against the Igbo were only too clear from the monopoly of the international airports and the police training colleges they contended. In the 50s, when cocoa was booming and the East was advocating allocation on the basis of needs, the West insisted on the principle of derivation. But immediately mineral oil was discovered in commercial quantities in the East. A large amount of the money derived from this mineral oil has been shared by the West as well as other parts of the country. Considering all this, the argument went on. One can easily understand the attitude of the North and West to the proposals of the military regime for the unification of the country. The North and the West want to continue to enjoy the resources of the East. Does this not sound like you're just hearing it like it's happening recently? Like it's the same thing you see here today. That's what I'm saying basically. This was in the 1970s, by the way. The North and the West want to continue to enjoy the resources of the East while treating the Easterner as a stranger in those places. That is why they want to revert to the old form of the Federation, which will give them political power to continue to persecute the Easterner, although they fully realize that the human and economic resources of the East constitute something of the linchpin of the economy of Nigeria. This is a clear case of dishonesty and hypocrisy which the Easterner can no longer tolerate. That's from IUL Collections on Civil War. So that's the basis of their support for unitary system. Let me tell you what Igbos do. If you think it's affecting them personally, they will start with, you hate Igbos. If they can take advantage of something in your place that connects you to them, e.g. present day South, they will say you are speaking about the Eastern region. If they want to fight the North, they will say the North hates the South. If they want to fight alone, they just say, oh, you are hating Igbo, you are hating Igbo. But if it's like, you Yoruba and Hausa against us in the Eastern region. That's why they're always shouting East, East, East. There's no East again. The East stopped existing in 1967. There's no Eastern region. They hold on to that. And then, when you work more, they now say, oh, the South versus the North. That's why I don't believe in all this thing of South against the North. You never hear South come together to accomplish something. All you hear is South come together to fight the North. I'm like, when you are done fighting the North, let me just say this in passing. We're going to listen to Professor Shoyinka now. If you're a Yoruba person, and you have a person calling you into one coalition to fight the North, when you are done fighting the North, whether you win or you lose, you'll be the next person they will fight. Because the very essence of your coalition is fighting, and you must fight. That spirit will be following you. The same passion the same way they insulted the other people, they will insult you too. So all this coalition, alliance, just joking. Having said that, let's take a break with this interview that Professor Shoyinka granted a while back. Take a listen, please.
That's all.
What do you think of the person, Mr. Peter Obi? What do you think? How do you think he can make it right? Do you think, what mistakes do you think he made, and do you think he has a chance in the next election?
Well, I hope for the sake of the nation that he doesn't express interest in the next election. Because for me as a leader, if there was any proof that he was unfit to lead that country, it's in the conduct which he encouraged among his followers. I know for a fact, and I can give you an instance which proved that he was in control of those forces.
Can you please, what's the instance, Prof?
Well, simply because when he first came to visit me, he did come at one time.
That's correct.
Somebody brought him. And I watched him. I watched his action, his body language. It seemed to be very conciliatory. But I remember the moment when he took out his computers, something, and after he made a statement like, "Oh, don't worry, everything, the technical, you don't have anything to worry about these people." He was talking about the quote-unquote obedience. I remember he took out his computer, his phone, and he tapped, a message, there. And it shot me. I was watching him. It was anything. And after that, everything seemed to be, to be nice and cozy.
So he really did, yes.
And I saw and I read his statement about that meeting afterwards. The statement was a contrast to what actually happened, what we discussed. And I mentioned it in my response when somebody said, I can't remember what he wrote, but anyway, it was a misrepresentation of what happened. And I made sure that I put a statement out saying, no, sorry, this is not what was said. This language never came into it. On the contrary, this is what happened. And so when I meet somebody who is incapable, even at a meeting which is supposed to be conciliatory, of being completely honest, I look at that person, and so I smiled myself. And of course, when I got to Stellenbosch and I was asked a question about this, I repeated exactly what had given, quote-unquote, given offense. Only this time I made it even stronger. I said, Peter Obi did not win this thing. So I led them again to go on the...
All right. Says he wished that he wouldn't run. I mean, he can run if he wants to. But Thomas saw Bele Nibagba. How do you interpret that? So, but if you throw Abebe hand fan, if you throw it up 1,000 times, to only fall on his face. So, like, it doesn't really matter how many times you try, it looks like it's going to be the same result, essentially. But that was quintessential Wole Soyinka. I want you to listen to Peter Obi himself. It was on a podcast recently, and he lambaed us. Take a listen to this wonderful lamba. Hey. This man. Anyway, take a listen, please.
He has a landlord.
I have a rented place in Lagos.
You are living in rent in Lagos.
Yes. Yes. I have a rented place in Lagos. She saw me today playing with my landlord. Say yes. I have.
Peter Obi has a landlord.
You have a landlord. Wait.
Peter Obi has a landlord.
What I'm saying is, I have a landlord doing this and clean my environment and everything.
So Peter Obi cooks and cleans?
Yes, I do. And I serve everybody that comes to my house. The day you come, it's me who will give you food.
Hi, everyone.
So, first of all, if you come to my house, I'm not serving you anything. Like, there's a particular age you get to long. Number one, what's all this? I'm poor, I don't have things. If I don't have anything, I don't have a house. You have money. But you are playing, I have a landlord. You know what? I don't want to even, I'll respond though, but may I play you something? Well, here's something from one of the leaders in Labour Party a while back. Take a listen, please.
They claim, and I saw him claiming that P2B has no property anywhere in this country. That is the greatest fallacy of the 21st century. Peter owns a company called Next International. He's probably the biggest property owner in this country. I don't talk of the big shopping mall in Abuja. His younger brother controls everything.
Is there anyone in Anambra?
Oh yes, there's ShopRite he has at Onisha. Everything about ShopRite is P2B. He annexed a land in my town through a foreign and offshore company. And he's building something there now.
Wow. If you go to a man's house who is married man's house, and I don't like talking personal stuff, but here's the point. The point is, there is no joy in saying that you are the one serving people that come. I saw a video where he was serving them, and those ones also sat down. We were collecting something from a 60-something-year-old man. Hey, one on lost later now. You didn't go to the kitchen. You're waiting for him to come and serve you. What's the goal in that? What does that tell you? That means that you don't know how to govern your home. You are serving people. If you are not married, that's okay. But even if you're not married, that's not a sense of you. That doesn't mean that's not humility. Do you not have a person working for you at home that can help you? What's this? I have a small place I'm living in. Meanwhile, you actually own Next. I don't have property. Meanwhile, your businesses have. What is okay? So you not having property, how does that make me now vote for you? Is there like a place for the poor, like the desire of Nigerians is to vote for poor people? You have a landlord, so the bar is too low in this country. Someone says Obi family are living in the UK. Even if they are living in the UK, what's the glory of if you come to my house I will serve you? Whether you serve me or you don't serve me, what does that do for me? Okay, your family is in the UK, but you are saying you don't have property, but the property in the UK belongs to you. There's a video here. I'll play it when I put out this video. There's a video here where he was telling the person how much he bought his house in the UK. Meanwhile, you are working, you are making money, you have been a chairman of a bank. You have a right to own property. You're not a poor man. If you own a property, who will speak? I mean, okay, so let me ask you, let me even ask in the comment section. So you hear today that Peter Obi has a house in VI. Would you have a problem with it? Like, what sane human being would have a problem with the fact that it's Peter Obi? He's not a small boy. He's not, I'm even speaking on his behalf right now. He's not like, forget politics. He's doing well in business. He's been in business for a while. Someone said Panama, leave Panama alone for a while. But he's been in business. I mean, say if you make money, you not spend it on yourself. Which one is after me? Apologize to people. I don't really have property. What do you mean have property? Of course you do have property. If I find you that video, I'll play it. I'll put it on YouTube, on this video. Tomorrow post there where he was saying how much he bought a part. In fact, I found that video. Take a listen to this.
Everybody standing. Yes. Everybody standing. Yes. My house, called in 1996. Can you give us proof? You bought this house in 1996. Yeah. September 1996. My check in full. Being full payment. The above check is for payment of recycled credit as agreed. But sent full payment. 1996. This house is like selling for 1 billion, for 1 million pounds. It's there. So, when can I remember? Listen, before I wrap around, was like $7 million. They're both them companies in Chile. It's there. So, for all that, it's a business. So, for me, I'm not eventually a man of life. I change the time. For them, no, for them, only one idea. For example, it's okay to make TV business. So, setting it up. Oh, what the company patronage?
How rich do you think you'll be if you're able to buy something worth £1 million in 1996? Scratch that. It's £200,000 in £200,000 in 2026. As of 96, you already bought a property in the UK. However you got that money, it's between you and God. But the point is, let's even say you didn't buy anything. The idea that you have to make yourself out to be a poor person is actually just weird. And that other guy is shouting, Peter Obi has a landlord. Peter Obi has a landlord. So what? Were we not here? Let me tell you why I speak like that. I think I've mentioned it here before. It was something that happened during Buhari and it was 2019 election when they were serving Buhari and Shibajo, the vice presidential candidate at the time, and the presidential candidate. They had sachets of peak milk and Milo. I was like, I didn't know on the milk and I don't know sachet. So you're telling me now that when you want to drink, you're using sachets to sachet of Milo. Okay. On get on your go, but that was cool branding. Okay, but even that one was more like show don't tell. Once you begin to tell, you are lying. But that's Peter Obi and what he wants us to believe. There are some other videos here, but I don't think I want to go into this now. Number. Okay, since we are still on him, I'm just going to play a few videos, just a couple, very short, 2 minutes long, and then we'll go to other things. Okay. This one is said is actually quite interesting. Take a listen to this.
But this year, they go treat you say you know be anything. And now we be Nigeria pass so.
Why you talk to her? How you be Nigeria pass? You be Nigeria pass me.
So, if you go for anywhere for this country, when you see the citizens of the place finish, like woman you go see.
As Igbo people there everywhere.
Now they do trade, now they do workers, now they do local shop, everything. And now us they come Lagos, build house, go Ibadan, build house, go Medugri, where they even fight, build house, go Yola, build house, everywhere we did. They could treat us like people will say we want to be here. But as they push us, like every day, they go to attack us. They go by our house. The government, they don't want us to be part of anything. Even when they do posts, they know they give us. Even if they don't give us, they give us the one where maybe they just give these people, like they don't chop all the meat. Maybe they take the boat.
Would you believe that was the presidential candidate? Now and then be Nigerian. That was this Peter Obi. When that guy did put a video out and said, "Oh, Igbos is the educated people that speak, is the uneducated people that talk all those nonsense." Is that not Peter Obi? That's like the Lord and Savior of most people. I mean, over 90% of the votes in the Southeast went to him, something around that figure. So clearly, it means something to folks in the Southeast. Guess what he just said? They are the real Nigerians. If you go anywhere in Nigeria, after the owners of the land, where did you have the census? After the owners of the land, then remain. Anywhere you go, they build houses, develop different parts. Even where you work, then they develop because you are what developer. Then he mentioned one funny thing. They don't give them anything. Don't give them whatever roles they give them. As if they give them bones. They've eaten the meat. This is a presidential candidate. This is a person who is telling you about this is, when they say that it's only the illiterate that talk like this. I don't think he's. I mean, I think he's educated, right? At least he's one of the elites in Igbo land. That's the presidential candidate. And one more thing from the great Peter Obi. Take a listen.
Today, rice is 100,000 naira. We're not even sure where we're going to be with this situation. Is our turn? Is a Yoruba man? Ask the people in Ogun here. Is there any place you will buy bread cheaper? So I can follow you this night and buy one. The country today.
How is that different from what the average Joe says on social media or anywhere else? The Yoruba man is very cheaper in Ogun. Everybody sounds alike. But here's what Showore had to say about Peter Obi. It was at a podcast, and this is his own opinion as far as Peter Obi and propaganda are concerned. Take a listen.
2023 election. Do you think you would have done better than what Tinubu is doing right now?
That was the reason I was supposed to be in 2022 and 2023, even when the whole country was saying, oh, he's better than, peanut butter. I said, look, how you will tell me what you did to Nigeria, you will show me what you did to your state when you were there for 8 years. And I've asked this question of all the people who support to be in this country. Nobody has been able to answer my question. Can you go and spend your next vacation in Anambra that will be left behind? Is there running water there? No. Did you build any schools that you can send the children to? The answer is no. They will tell you that you should go and verify. It was go and verify that took me to Abia. I have verified now. You all are upset. Because I am a person who is scientific in nature. Most people, and I keep saying this, don't know Obi more than I do. I knew Obi as far back as 2007 when he was governor of Anambra State. I was in the US and we were doing reporting on him so that his mandate would not be stolen from him by Chris Uba, the Uba brothers, who were Obasanjo's lackeys. So we fought for Obi to the point that, and you can ask Obi this if you find him, if his memory has not left him. When I first met Obi was in front of Professor Chinua Achebe at Rhode Island in the US. He said to Achebe, he said, I've never met Showore before, but if not for this guy and Sahara reporters, I wouldn't have I wouldn't be governor for 2 seasons. But by the time we were done with following Obi through media, we discovered that the guy didn't do anything. Everything he did was substandard. You could never find any road that he constructed that has not been a road that he didn't build any school. These things are not things that were told to me. These are things that I covered. And he's very good at propaganda, to the point that when we then turned against him as our reporters, I'm saying it, because when we found out we started reporting on all his shenanigans, he was very upset. There's a guy known as Valentine OBM. He's one of the most rabid propagandists there is in the world. They were so upset with us. They went and printed posters in Aba, accusing me and Ndibe, who was a columnist with our reporters, of being gay.
Hey.
And posted it all over Aba. I still have a copy of the posters. It was done by this Valentine OBM, but Obi was the one who greenlighted it. Because one thing most people don't know about Obi is that...
Are you saying that Peter Obi started a smear campaign against you?
Of course. Look, it was what he was doing even in... Anybody who was under him as governor will tell you, the Catholics, the Anglicans, they have a history of his way of, blackballing people. So, but we continued regardless until he went back, left APGA and joined the PDP and was working under Goodluck Jonathan as a special advisor. He was an economic advisor under Jonathan. So it's not like Obi left Anambra and went on vacation. He was still actively in government. In fact, at the time that Buhari came, Obi was the chairman of, I think, the stock exchange in Nigeria, I think in Lagos. So it was Buhari that kicked him out of that position. That was his last known position before he came back in 2022. I'm just telling you all these things so that you will understand that we are speaking from a place of knowledge and history.
Someone says this is who some Yorubas voted for. I mean, Igbaimo, let's assume that people did not know. But there's one more thing I want to play before I move on to other things. And this was an exclusive New Central exclusive with Peter Obi. And take a listen to this.
Remember, you did say that from day one. You say subsidy is gone. What would you have done?
I didn't say from day one. I said I would remove subsidy.
You remove it.
Okay. You know, I didn't say from day one, and I wouldn't have done it
from day one.
Our question has to do with the issue of removal of fuel subsidy. Considering that this current administration has said that by June 2023, the subsidy will be removed. Is it going to be your priority in your first 100 days in office? How sustainable is subsidy to the Nigerian economy? Thank you.
Thank you. Well done. But I can assure you, it will go immediately. Subsidy, I've said it before, is organized crime. And I cannot allow it to stay a day longer.
So you remove subsidy?
Well, like I said before, everything has to be, if this is going to happen, this is the result.
Would you remove subsidy?
We have to look at it critically.
Would you remove subsidy?
Remember what I said? Yes and no.
So your answer on subsidy is yes and no?
Yes.
And
Yes.
no. Would you remove subsidy?
Oh boy. Yes or no? Yes. No, no, yes, yes. Yeah, yes, yes, no, no. What's in the bridge boxing? That's the person we are supposed to vote for. If we don't vote, then we are bigots and tribalists. See, the man has but it's important to remind folks, especially people that are easily swayed by public opinion or we have to remind ourselves. I'm looking for something. If I find it, I'll play for it. But if not, what I found is not good. Is somebody's father crying, where is Obi? Where is Obi? Don't be like that, though. Don't be like that. This man is just who he is, and all those things. But you said you're going to remove it immediately. After Tinubu don't remove it, the con ask you say you remove it from day one. You say you didn't say day one. You just say you remove it. What's wrong saying day one immediately? You say it's not going to stay a day longer. Does not sound like day one. Yes, yes, no, 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 yes, yes, no. That's supposed to be you win something in the Southeast. Here's the funny thing: if you decide to create something in the Southeast now, and ask that people, let's say the South is a region on its own. Let's say it was a region, and you ask them to vote Peter Obi. Peter Obi will not be the head of that region. He will not be the head of that region. I want to say something about IPOB and stuff, but before I go into that, since we're still talking about Peter Obi, I want you to listen to what he had to say. I think it's about IPOB. I want you to listen to that before we read the full list that federal government released over the weekend. Take a listen to this.
I know there's not one day I live in knowledge. And I can tell you they're not terrorists. Their people are passed on the road and everything every day. In fact, I can tell you in no manner they're civil. Because I meet them and I live with them. And I usually see people gathering and all that. I know there's not one day did I feel a sense of threat or molestation or anything from them even when they gather. You know, I live in knowledge. When Tofa and I can tell you they're not terrorists. Their people are passing on the road and everything every day. In fact, I can tell you in Norman they're civil because I meet them and I live with them. And I usually see people gathering and all that. And not one day did I feel a sense of threat or molestation or anything from them, even when they gather.
Peter says IPOB, they're not terrorists, they live together. Full list: Simon Ekpa, Tukomamu, IPOB. Federal government names 48 individuals, groups linked to terrorism financing. I'm reading from the cable. The federal government has published a list of 48 individuals and groups allegedly linked to terrorism financing in Nigeria. The list released on Saturday by Nigeria Sanctions Committee includes persons and entities suspected of involvement in terrorism-related activities with links to proscribed and extremist groups such as Indigenous People of Biafra, IPOB, Ansaro Sudan, and the Islamic State of West Africa Province, ISWAP. Islamic State West African Province, ISWAP. Among those named is Simon Ekpa, a Finland-based separatist figure associated with a faction of IPOB. On September 1, 2025, the Pajat Army, I think it's Finnish, District Court in Finland sentenced Ekpa to 6 years in prison for terrorism offenses. The court found Ekpa guilty of inciting terrorism and participating in the activities of a terrorist group. Also listed is Tuko Mamu, a Kaduna-based publisher who is currently facing trial in Nigeria over alleged involvement in terrorism financing. Mamu was arrested in 2022 and has since been arraigned on multiple charges filed by the federal government, including allegations of supporting terrorist groups through logistics and financial networks. He has denied the charges. Other individuals on the list, Amtu Sabat and so on, they have many other names, mostly from the north and from the east. And then they have the groups and all those things. But here's the point. This man said that they are not terrorists. Have you noticed that you never hear Peter Obi speak against IPOB? It's not possible. It is not possible. Peter would never speak against IPOB. And you know the crazy part, and this is for Yoruba people. A lot of Yoruba people also who are supporting, what's it called? Who are supporting Peter Obi, they also shy away from IPOB, you know, from condemning whatever IPOB does. They can't come out straight because their Lord and Messiah is for them. Who can be against them? A few more things before we have the final news report, and then I will go to today's topic. But before we get to the topic, just a couple more things. Okay, it's the list. I can't read that list. It's very long. The list of all the people. Okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to play you an audio. Look at mine now. I think it's Buratai. I'm going to play you. I'll find you then. I think that's his name though. I'm going to play you what he had to say. Then I'll quickly go out and get you the picture. I'll leave this video where you can listen. This is about what happened in 1978 towards the 1979 elections and how the Southeast played the politics at the time. And what you've heard so far is this person hates me, that person hates me. I think it's important, and I've mentioned several times that 9 years after the war, the Southeast produced a vice presidential candidate. But they could have produced a presidential candidate actually. That's Azikiwe. But some things happened. And this man was there. Well, when I get you the picture for the final news report, take a listen to. I confuse his name. It's not. What's his name? It's not Buratai. It's if you hear the sound of his voice, but I remember his name before he finishes. Take a listen to this, please.
Why my friends in the Southeast don't get their politics right? In 1978, Alhaji Shehu Shagari led a delegation of northern elders to visit Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe and invited him to join the national movement and to lead them to become their presidential candidate. The young Turks in the Southeast then said don't trust these Hausa people. And Zik now went and pitched his tent with NNPP. And eventually it got broken into two, NNPP and GNPP under Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe and Alhaji Waziri Ibrahim. How many states did Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe won? He lost one golden opportunity for the Southeast to become president. After Obasanjo was leaving office, Obasanjo called the leaders of the Southeast and told them that nominate somebody from the North to become president. Therefore, they should produce a vice presidential candidate. All of them answered, Mba, 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 no, 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 only president or never. Obasanjo had a soft heart for the Igbos. He went and picked Peter Obi to be vice presidential candidate to Yar'Adua. The same Southeast petitioned against Peter Odili, Dr. Peter Odili, and told the EFCC where his money for buying delegates were placed. And the EFCC raided those locations and wrote to disqualify Peter Odili. So Jonathan was picked as vice presidential candidate. You see destiny. The Igbos, had they agreed, or the Southeast, had they agreed to allow an Igbo man to be vice presidential candidate, it could have been history that a Southeasterner could have become the president of Nigeria after Yar'Adua's death. And when Jonathan became president, during the completion of Yar'Adua's first term, Adamu Chiroma, Umar Shinkafi, and others called the leaders of the Southeast at Yar'Adua Center here. I want young men to know this history, and told them that, look, after the completion of Yar'Adua's first term, Jonathan should step down, and the North will nominate another candidate to complete Yar'Adua's 4 years, such that after Jonathan can also run with the person as revert to as vice president, so that they will now cede power to the Southeast. They said never, 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 never. And some elements of them went to Enugu and said it is Jonathan or never. It is Jonathan or never. That if Jonathan completes his term, he's going to cede the power to the Southeast. I don't think it makes a logical political reasoning. So they held that meeting in Enugu and announced to the world what they wanted. Now they supported Jonathan. The Northerners pulled the carpet under their feet by telling Jonathan, calling Jonathan with the witnesses, including Obasanjo, to tell him that he's going to be given another term in office so that they don't fight Jonathan as president. And now they sidelined them. Jonathan became president to make 6.5 years as president. It was when Jonathan wanted to compete again that the Northerners ganged against him and threw him out. This history, young men and women and people of the media should now understand. Now, ordinarily, the generals, including Obasanjo, Babangida, and others that supported Buhari, ordinarily, they couldn't have done that. But it's because Jonathan insisted, after having been in office for 6 years plus, that they all ganged up and supported Buhari to win that election. So the issue is that the Southeast people are the enemies of themselves. They are the people who jettisoned the zoning in the first few.
I'm going to have a session where we will bring out documents, books to corroborate or debunk the things. I mean, there's nothing to debunk. So let me just say, there's nothing to debunk. Most of what he said, most of it, what happened, there are some books, not today, we're going to have a session where I'm going to read out things to confirm some of the things he said. some of the backdoor deals that they had, and how the East got to be where the East is, or the South is how they got to be where they are. Some of those things are true. A lot of those things are actually true. If you are interested, you can start with this book. I actually wanted to read about Umagba time. Nigeria on Gunpowder, The Climax of Misrule by Victor Olutaiwo. It's actually voluminous, but he talked about what happened with NNPP in 1978 and what Zik was going to do originally before he changed his mind. He wasn't going to run, and then why he changed his mind, what he did with the party, how the party broke into, how that affected his chances of winning the election in 1979. All those things we'll talk about when the time comes. But I'm going to refer to that video, and then we will now go into books to debunk or confirm some of those things. But we'll make him, because if you had written a book, would have been quoting him as well. That, by the way, that was Buba Galadima. That was Alaji Buba Galadima. So we're going to have another session where we actually discuss the things he said. But I felt I should play it so that you actually have an idea. I said earlier, if things happen and they're not working properly, the first thing you want to do is to introspect. Now, I'm not saying introspecting to the point where you destroy yourself and you talk down on yourself, but at least you want to know what happened. What did I contribute to this problem? And then before you now begin to say, okay, what did other people do? But if every time you're having conversations about Nigerian politics, always what people did to us, what people did to us, you don't even know what deals have been done. People say things like they don't care about you, but it's not true. It's not true. But we'll have that conversation some other time. I'm going to go to the final thing we want to talk about today, and then we'll go to today's topic. Today's topic will be reading some books, starting with Christ and Contradiction Nigeria. You're going to enjoy that one. We're discussing Zik, Biafra, and a legacy of contradiction. But that'll be after this report. I want to put up a picture, and I will probably just take my face off for a second so that you see it well. That's a picture that I saw on Twitter. Now, I want it to sink in for a bit. I don't know if you saw it. I don't know if you saw it, but it's I saw it on Twitter earlier today, and I almost cried. Why did I almost cry? Thank you for asking. I'm going to tell you about it in a bit. All right, I think since we've seen it, I can remove the picture now, right? Umbo. So let me remove the picture. One second. I wrote something when I saw that stuff. So I can find it in my notes. All right. So I saw that picture earlier today, and I almost cried. I almost cried because we're literally observing the replay of history, and it's not good history. 1966, that particular image, that exact image, was published by Igbos in the north. And where you had Obi, it was Nzogu. Where you had Tinubu, it was Sardauna. They published almanacs. There's a picture here of a bread label. You see it when this video comes out. A bread label of Nzogu conquering, and his foot was on, of course, the Sardauna's neck or head, just like this one you saw with Peter Obi supposedly being like Angel Michael, and then with his sword, he's able to trap the president underfoot. I think it's a bit sobering, and I think it's something that people should consider. Albert Einstein said, the definition of insanity is when somebody does the same thing and expects a different result. I think that people are doing the same thing and they will get the same result, even though I don't think that result is cool, and I don't think I want anybody to get that kind of result. Songs were, they waxed albums, records back in '66, two particular ones. It was Ewu Nabakwa by Rex Lawson, Machine Gun by Celestine Uko, blaring it in public places, in motor parks. People were discussing stuff all across the place. They were telling Hausa people that Northerners essentially that it was only Nzogu that could knock sense into them, Shina Maganinko. They were brandishing cutlasses and guns in the north in 1966. They were putting posters of the Sardauna, the greatest politician of the Igbo, of the Northerners at the time, under the foot of Nzogu in the north. It is not different from this picture. I just want to, if you know people from the southeast, or if you're a person from the southeast, instead of all these things that people are doing, it's not possible to call people and tell them, like this thing, there will be consequences, because people will see some things. There are some people that will see these things and will just throw caution into the wind. So please, from the south, and you're playing politics, there are limits to things. You are repeating the mistakes of the past, and it's as though you want to experience what happened in the past, and what happened in the past was not good. I don't want to see it. So I just wanted to put that video, that picture out. I actually wrote a lot of things down that I was going to say, but what are we going to say? Than to just appeal to people that they should calm down. They should calm down. When you put out a picture like this, and you see, this is the problem. When fathers don't teach their sons and their daughters the real history, and they just go around saying we are the victims of everybody, they did this to us, they did this to us. You didn't tell them what your parents did. Your fathers did not tell you what their parents did. This is exactly what they did. No, but nothing will kill Tinubu, Kokonishe, Coca-Cola, Rotanle. Nothing will happen to him, and your Messiah cannot win. Okay, by the grace of God, Tinubu is going to win this election. He's going to win. Tell Roy to excuse me. Tinubu will be fine. Nothing will happen to him. He'll be strong. He will. 1 second. He'll be fine. He'll be strong. I didn't dare Majela Barolong. And by the grace of God, this election he will win. He will run. Your man will not win. You can cry, but that's okay. But whether you win or not, this kind of provocative publications and images, AI is available now. You can use it for anything. You can use it to kill yourself. People should be careful. I hope with these few points of mine, I've been able to convince you not to repeat the terrible part of history. May God have mercy on all of us. Amen. Now to today's topic. Logic Vector says they will feel it in Jagaban's second tenure. We'll see how that goes. Sorry guys. Ruby, who is Ruby? Hello, Ruby. Hello? Uh-oh. All right, like the nature sound and the birds chirping, but I don't think you wanted to speak. I'm just going to read some of the comment section before I get to today's topic, okay? Someone says, which fathers are you expecting to teach them? These are children from baby factories. Wow. No comments. I read on YouTube, TikTok people are angry at this moment. Even folks on YouTube are also angry. Okay, like Onitsha Head Bridge get to like Strait of Hormuz. People are writing things, so I'm not going to read all those things. Some of those things are pure insults. Akini Obiade says, by there, I think. I apologize because I'm in the someone for one going. Only Akini Obiade, he doesn't own a property outside the East, means he doesn't believe in this country. In 1996, he bought a house for £1 million. It is well. His Green Life said, just because you and your Wole Soyinka said it does not mean you are right. The power to decide who gets to be the next president of Nigeria. Thank you. It's Green is Life. Even the name God said, it's Green is Life. Come and win now. Where's the next person? Let me just leave you alone because it is well with you. It's Green is Life. There are things on this comment. If I read it, I will respond, and if I respond, it's going to sound harsh. So let's let things be. Today's topic. Thank you. Let me do a little housekeeping. Thank you very much for tapping and getting us to 131.5k likes on TikTok. Thank you very much, everyone who has chipped in. Thank you, Koboko. Thank you, Bumblebee. Thank you, Sinchin. Thank you, Consider Preventers. Everybody who has tapped, thank you. But please don't stop. Let's keep our tapping so we can keep the live going. And also, feel free to comment, write in the comment section. What happened to folks on TikTok? You guys, kilo shele. Because of winnie lojo orogun. Kilo kan yen pẹ̀lú nǹkan tá à ń sọ bá torí Ọlọ́run. It is well. It is well. Anyway, but seriously, please power tap. And thank you very much for the gift you gave while I was speaking. I really appreciate your generosity. Thank you for the roses and for the hearts and for the money guns and the money trucks and everything. Thank you very, very much. God bless you. Real good. All right. So I'll just read a few more things before we get to this. I'm using this opportunity to rest. I want to read comment section, then I'll now start with the topic. Logic Vector says here, I think they are frustrated because after Jagaban, power returns to the north. All power belongs to Jesus. All power belongs to God. All things being equal, I mean, anything can change. I mean, some things can change. Who knows? But first of all, by the grace of God, Tinubu is going to finish second term. But all things being equal, you're going to have a northerner from 2031 to 2039. And then it's going to come south. 2039 to 2047. Right? That will either be south-south or southwest. How do I know? Based on what they see right now. Does anything look like anybody is planning for the future? Insult all Nigerians, insult your Bible, take us to the cleaners. Talk, just say all kinds of things, just insult everybody. And so there is nothing, and by the way, even if Peter Obi gets 10 million, now he got 6 million last, he will not get up to 6 million now because many people who voted for him now discovered that there was nothing to it. That's the truth, okay? Because the guy is speaking, is talking about China went to China. I'm like, go and say no more. People actually voted for that. Anyway, He has unraveled now. So double that number. Do you know that was what Buhari had in 2003, in 2007, and in 2011? He had 12 million. Last one, 2011, give or take around that same 12 million. It was getting 12 million votes like constant. He still did not become president 3 times. It was in 2015 when he collaborated with the Southwest, with Mashwaju, President Tinubu now. That was when he was not able to get the spread that he needed across Nigeria to be able to become president. You cannot alienate everybody else, insult everybody, curse them out. Meanwhile, you're giving yourself 100% votes. I said we're going to talk about that vote today. Oh, yeah, I just remembered now. Let's see if there's time we'll discuss it. If there's no time, we'll talk about it some other time. But it's on our Telegram channel, Radio Me Global. You find that link there. The Substack link. You see the breakdown of how they rigged the election in the southeast last election. They rigged in Nigeria's that election, the most rigged part of Nigeria, where they rigged the election. I don't know. Let me speak proper English. The region where they rigged the election the most was the southeast. Properly done. We'll talk about it some other time. But the point I'm trying to make is that you can't create this insulated bubble where you, with yourselves, you are making yourselves happy, cursing everybody out, and hoping that at some point you're going to become president of Nigeria. You will get your 12,000 billion votes. You will not become president. It's not a matter of curse. It's about collaboration. Everybody you're supposed to work with, you don't curse us finish. Nobody knows how to do anything. Insult Yoruba, insult Fulani, insult Hausa. If anything happened and they insulted Atiku Abi, they insult him again. They'll say insult Kwakwanso. Insult anybody. Don't worry. Keep doing it. Don't stop. You regret it. All right, let's get into today's topic, and that is Nnamdi Azikiwe's role. So this conversation we're having right now is actually a product of a question that somebody asked on YouTube. So we put out a video and someone wrote in the comment section that, was Azikiwe involved in Biafra at all, or was he on the side of Nigeria? But let me just quickly give like a hint. So it was here and there, and neither here nor there. It depends on when you are looking at, like the period you're really discussing. So like I said earlier, Ojukwu declared Biafra May 30th, 1967. And then there was a police action from the Nigerian perspective, from Nigerian's angle, from then up until July. And that was from June. From June to July, there was police action trying to bring him back. If they had done what they were supposed to do well at the time, they were taking him seriously, they would have removed Ojukwu very quickly. But I guess they didn't think that he had really made up his mind to do what he wanted to do. July 10, 1967, the war began. And from that moment, in fact, before the war even started, all the way till August of 1969, Ojukwu was with Biafra. Sorry, Azikiwe was with Biafra. Azikiwe supported Biafra. He only moved in August of 1969, and that was about 5 months to the end of the war. Contrary to popular opinion, the war did not last for 3 years, it lasted 30 months, not 36. It was July 1967 to January of 1970. All right, so August of 1969 was when Azikiwe changed his mind, and we're going to get into some of those things tonight. We begin with someone says 2.5 years. Yeah, something like that, 2.5 years. We'll begin with Mumbo. We'll begin with Crisis and Conflict in Nigeria by A.H.M. Green. Let's start with, just give me a second. I'm trying to, so I have a number of books open. I'm just looking at the best way to begin. Okay, let's start with that book I mentioned. Thank you for power tapping. Was somebody trying to come up? I'd have brought you up if I knew you were coming up, or it would have allowed me. No, I don't know this person. I don't have a name. No. That's not. Mambo. You know what? Let's do it this way. We'll start with that. It says here, popularly known as Zik. Azikwe's Civil War role was that of a great political chess player. This was written by an Igbo person. I can't find the name now. I don't want to go back to the beginning because I don't know what's happening to this stuff. So it's writing from their perspective. Popularly known as Zik, Azikwe's Civil War role was that of a great political chess player. He was indeed a consummate politician who practiced the art of political maneuvering, but hard to pin down. Nothing really evinces this more than the role he played during the Nigerian Civil War. All published war literature and recollections of many actors of the period give the picture of a man that many Nigerians felt gave maximum support to secession, but whose support for the same cause the Biafrans themselves were not sure of. That's not true. I'll explain. He not only argued the case for Biafran sovereignty, He not only argued the case for Biafran sovereignty, but also later changed course dramatically by deserting the rebels and calling on them to lay down their arms and rejoin the federal folk. Ironically, even before the first shot was fired, Zik's actions had begun to come under intense scrutiny and question. For example, his absence from Nigeria during the Nigerian For example, his absence from Nigeria during the first 1966 coup that toppled the Tafawa Balewa government had spent... Jesus Christ. Give me a second. Let me just take some water. I needed to calm down. Let me go back just a bit. He not only argued the case for Biafran sovereignty, but also later changed course dramatically by deserting the rebels and calling on them to lay down their arms and rejoin the federal folk. Ironically, even before the first shot was fired, Zik's actions had begun to come under intense scrutiny and question. For example, his absence from Nigeria during the first 1966 coup that toppled the Tafawa Balewa government had sent tongues wagging. Although he explained that he had gone to England at the time to seek medical attention, it was speculated that he was in the know of the coup. Let me stop to say something here. Zik, it's not about speculation. Zik was in the know. Zik knew about the coup. He traveled October 1965. He did not return until February 1966. He was so sick that even his doctor left him there. He stayed as long as, he stayed outside the country for as long as necessary as far as he was concerned, to ensure that whoever wanted to do whatever they wanted to do, which was a coup, would do whatever they wanted to do without him being present. So he definitely wasn't on it. Not only did he know about it, he wasn't on it. Zik was to later dismiss the speculation, saying it was a mere coincidence. By the way, if you notice, every Igbo person that was supposed to be shot escaped, and it was always coincidence. The gentleman that somebody referred to earlier, somebody sent the person's video to me. I don't like to call the person's name because I don't like what they said. Excuse me. I don't want to disparage anyone. But the person kept, saying things like, Zik was sick and I left the country, and that's why. And then when you talk about this other person that was supposed to be killed, so like there was a coincidence, and then he will now quote, of all writers in this world, he will now quote Frederick Forsyth. Quoting Forsyth in a conversation about Nigerian Civil War must be the joke of the century, because he himself wrote in his memoir that he had switched to the Biafran side. As a matter of fact, there's an interview he did maybe I'll play the video here one of these days, where I talked about the fact that he moved to the Biafran side. He was on the Biafran side. So it wasn't this unbiased arbiter or whatever. He was a Biafran propagandist as well. And at least he was, what's the word now? He was honest enough to admit it. Anyway, he said it was mere coincidence, just like every other able person was supposed to be unalived during that coup. Zik was ordered to dismiss the speculation, saying it was a mere coincidence that it was in England when the coup took place. Series of events which took place during the war years still did little to give a consistent picture of Zik's role. He said after the war that whatever he did during the war to help Biafra was largely under duress. According to him, this is what Zik said, "I was never a member of the Biafra Executive Council or its civil service or statutory bodies or its establishment. I was never consulted before any official policy was formulated or implemented. But occasionally, I was ordered to do certain things. For example, proceed on a mission abroad, join the delegation to Niamey and Addis Ababa. Of course, I had but option's choice. In some cases, I had to read prepared statements. In others, I was allowed to prepare my own statements. But by and large, I always acted under duress." Suffice it to say that the relationship between Odumegwu Ojukwu, the rebel leader, and Azikiwe may have contributed in large part to his neither here nor there attitude for the most part of the war. Ojukwu characteristically treated the late elder statesman with scorn. Before the war ever began, Ojukwu removed Azikiwe as the life chancellor of the University of Nigeria, Nsukka. Besides this, Zik and many of the older politicians were disturbed by the autocratic style of government that Ojukwu brought to eastern Nigeria as governor of the region. The appointment of Ojukwu's father to some boards, for instance, did not sit well with Zik and his group, who felt that the military took over power to correct the mistakes of the past, including tribalism and nepotism. It follows then that when secession was being hatched, any form of opposition to it came mainly from Zik and majority of the old politicians like Matthew Mbu and such lawyers as Louis Mbanefo. The opposition had little or no effect. I'm reading from an Igbo perspective. I will still tell you my opinion later, but let's hear from them first. The opposition had little or no effect as events had reached a point of no return. As Ojukwu said then, quote, "I think we are now rolling downhill and it will take a great deal to halt the momentum," end of quote. Even in the Consultative Assembly, which became Biafra's parliament once the civil war started, Zik found he had no influence. The much younger and radical members of the assembly were not ready to defer to him and benefit from his experience. Rather, the few times he attended the assembly sessions, he was shouted down as an old politician. Actually, they said worse. We'll read that later. Zik was ordered to say about the assembly that no votes were taken as such, and almost everything of the Consultative Assembly unanimously carries a written vote of implicit confidence in the leadership of Colonel Ojukwu. If anybody contradicted the contents of such a previously prepared resolution, he runs the risk of being detained. The disregard for Zik by Ojukwu and his government was to continue throughout the period he was in the rebel enclave from 1966 to 1969. Bernard Odogwu, one of the actors during the war, says in his book No Place to Hide that Ojukwu's disrespect for Zik was evident even on the foreign trips they undertook together. For example, in 1968, when Zik was summoned to accompany the rebel leader on a trip, he was only given less than an hour's notice. Not only that, Zik was completely shut out of the inner caucus of the group. In Gabon, for example, Zik was prevented from attending discussions with President Omar Bongo. Odogwu said that Zik, in a fit of anger, said, quote, "We have arrived at Gabon, and I have been excluded from the first talks with President Bongo, and I have been left standing in the dining hall as if I have never seen one before in my life," end of quote. According to Odogwu, Zik felt he was invited along to those foreign trips to be used as a showcase, and only to be humbled after the circus show. I must warn this young man, Colonel Ojukwu, that I would rather quit than tolerate any further insults and humiliations. Let's pause for a second and read a book by Ken Saro-Wiwa. The book is called On a Darkling Plain. We're going somewhere, please stay with me. We've not read books in a while. I like proper topic, so so I'd responded earlier what really happened, but I think it's important for us to actually read from those who were there. Number. Okay. The problem now is the page or this is not. 1 second, please. So this book was written by, like I mentioned, Ken Saro-Wiwa, and he was in Nsukka when the war began. I actually have the page open, but for some reason I can't find it now. Please give me a second, I'll find it for you. Number. All right, found it. On a Darkling Plain by Ken Saro-Wiwa. This is what he had to say. From the month of February through April, such propaganda was mounted in the university that one believed that civil war was imminent. This was before the war even began. No, this was in 1967. From the month of February through April, such propaganda was mounted in the university. Maybe I should go back just a bit because it connects with what we were discussing earlier, if you remember. Let's go back just a little bit. It says, for a time, everything went well, as well as the possibly could. So it says in 1966, after the July coup, a large number of university students and lecturers from the other national universities in Ibadan, Lagos, and Zaria found sanctuary in Nsukka, and a new element was introduced into the university. For a time, everything went well, or as well as they possibly could. But soon, a dichotomy began to appear between the lecturers from the other universities, Ibadan in particular, and those originally in Nsukka. Let's jump a little from there. Then he talked about how they were going to build another university for them. So it came that every word of Ojukwu was accepted uncritically by the Ibadan academics at Nsukka. That's folks, Igbos who left University of Ibadan and went back to the eastern region. The Nsukka academics, not to be outdone, became Ojukwu's megaphones, threatening hell and brimstone against the Federation of Nigeria and rooting for the Aburi Accord. From the month of February through April, such propaganda was mounted in the university that one believed that civil war was imminent. Loudspeakers called staff and students to rallies at which resolutions urging war were passed. Those were trying times. Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe was in his country house at Nsukka. One hardly saw him. He was meant, I believe, to be in disgrace. Since Ojukwu's arrival in Enugu, he had made an unmistakable attempt to disgrace Azikiwe, whose popularity definitely stood in the way of Ojukwu's political ambitions. First, he had him moved from the chancellorship of the university. Then he attacked the seamy side of Azikiwe's connections with the university. Next, he organized a systematic harassment of Azikiwe's finances, attempting the collection of debts owed by Dr. Azikiwe to agencies of the Eastern Nigerian government. If you remember what happened with the First Assorting Tribunal, what happened with the misappropriation of between £877,000 and £2 million by Azikiwe, money that belonged to the Eastern Region government at the time in the 1950s, well, Ojukwu was trying to collect. So was using that to also, disrespect him. So he says he attempted the collection of debts owed by Dr. Azikiwe to agencies of the Eastern Nigerian government. These actions were not calculated to endear him to Dr. Azikiwe, who, as all men, valued not only his personal property and wealth, but also his contribution to Nsukka University. The climax to the disagreement came when Ojukwu declared publicly apropos university that he was not going to be deterred by the bleating of an old goat, referring to Zik as an old goat, in respect of certain innovations he had proposed for the institution. The goat is a symbol of foolishness in eastern Nigeria. The insult in the remark was stinging. With the events of July 1966, some had hoped that the breach between Ojukwu and some old politicians might be healed. Dr. Para had been released from detention where his beard had turned grey, and Dr. Azikiwe appointed into the Consultative Assembly. Dr. Para returned to favour and was often seen in public by the side of Ojukwu. Dr. Azikiwe, however, probably made his final mistake when at the crucial October meeting of the Consultative Assembly, he argued that the East might well accept the creation of states in the region. He was loudly booed and is said to have left the assembly in disgrace. Booed or not, Dr. Azikiwe had given mature political advice based on his political experience. I don't agree it was mature political advice. I think it was a good advice, but what Zeke did before that point was what Ojukwu also was doing. In other words, keep the Eastern region. The minorities do not have their own region. So if you are changing your mind at this point, the young man will know that you are trying to also do something. So he says he was booed, and booed or not, Dr. Azikiwe had given mature political advice based on his political experience and his interpretation of the political weather vane at the time. Thereafter, he retired to his country house at Nsukka. The university at Nsukka was at that time under the leadership of Professor Eninjoku, who was not a particular friend of Dr. Azikiwe either. They had a disagreement in the early 50s during the crisis in the Eastern House of Assembly, where Dr. Njoku was one of the so-called sit-tight ministers, eventually dismissed by Dr. Azikiwe. This is not part of today's conversation, but let me just put it in there. Dr. Azikiwe had, it is said, referred to Njoku as the moon-headed doctor of leaves, a banter which the bored Dr. Njoku, a botanist, was not likely to forget. Why did I read this? Just to confirm some of the things we read in the other book about how Azikiwe was treated by Ojukwu, right? It was disrespected, it was talked out on, and the reason, of course, was because as far as Ojukwu was concerned, it was going to take the shine off him, so he needed to put him in his place and ensure that everybody knew who the sheriff in town was. So that's me trying to actually side with Azikiwe, just to be like, let's start on a very good footing. Now, let's leave all those matters and go to Crisis and Conflict in Nigeria by A.H.M. Kirk Green. We're going to try and explain the things that he said. I mean, everything he said about, I was under duress, that was what he said later on. But in the thick of things, we're going to read the things that he actually said. With so much of Biafra, I'm reading Crisis and Conflict in Nigeria by H.M. Green. With so much of Biafra now firmly in federal hands, Gowon took the bold decision to appoint a civilian administrator for Enugu. This was in 1968, and the recaptured areas of the East Central State. The man who courageously accepted the post on 28 October was Dr. Okpabi Asika, one of the few Igbo lecturers who had not fled Ibadan University in late 1966. His subsequent explanation of his personal dilemma and decision, "You are in a real sense the federal case," makes valuable reading and contrasts with the concurrent pro-Biafran sentiments of other Igbo and non-Igbo intellectuals. Asika appealed to Igbos to come out of hiding, and in the first of a number of notable public speeches, he urged his fellow countrymen to lay down their arms. Mid-November was notable too, discounting the speculation caused by the Emir of Kano's visit to London for medical reasons, that he might draw on his ambassadorial experience to act as a mediator. For several public statements, one was a detailed and important reply by Dr. Azikiwe to a report published in the Times of London, which had developed a suggestion attributed to Enaoro in Nairobi that the ex-president might still have a part to play in resolving the crisis, and speculated on his capacity to provide the alternative Igbo leadership that Gerald Gowon was insisting on. Let me just explain this to Renchi before I read what Zika actually said. This was not injurious. The point is that Asika was already appointed as the administrator of East Central State, right, after it was taken over by the Nigerian forces from Biafran forces, okay? But Gowon always wanted another Igbo person that would be the leader of the Igbo people, that would be like the bridge between the federal government and the Igbos, right, in the midst of the war and after the war. And he would have wanted Zeke to be that. Now, the Minister of Information at the time was Anthony Enaoro, and he had written in the Times of London that that's the former president, Nnamdi Azikiwe, might still have a part to play in resolving the crisis, and that he also has the capacity to provide the alternative Igbo leadership that General Gowon was insisting on. After answering points raised, Dr. Azikiwe went on to give an important description within the limitation of his delicate position living in a Biafra at war of his own feelings. This is what he wrote. It is crystal clear from all available evidence, judging from what is disseminated regularly in the Nigerian mass media of information, that the Igbo is not wanted anywhere in Nigeria. It is only in Biafra that they and other Easterners have found a place of refuge. In fact, the word Igbo has become anathema almost everywhere in Nigeria. The logical conclusion is to face the facts of contemporary Nigerian history and recognize the natural and inalienable right of the Igbo and fellow Easterners to self-determination and autonomous existence as a free, sovereign, and independent nation, christened the Republic of Biafra. That is the straightforward way to resolve honorably the problem of future peace in Nigeria, in which case I should be happy to cooperate in any reasonable manner. To do otherwise is to turn a blind eye to an unjustifiable pogrom and inexcusable genocide of 8 million Igbo-speaking peoples with 6 million non-Igbo-speaking peoples, contrary to the International Convention on Genocide and the internationally accepted standards of civilized life. Now, this is Zeke writing to respond something that was published in the Times of London, in the newspaper that was written by Enauro. Now, that duress that Zeke was talking about, did it apply to this thing he said as well? We're going to follow his thoughts, and then you can determine if he was under duress the whole time, or if he was just vacillating like he has always done since the 1930s. So Zeke is saying here, please remember this, because we're going to come back to this particular quote. It tells you that everything he now said after August of 1969 was contradicting the things that they said at the beginning of the war. And by the way, this Nkotan Soyi happened in 1968. He said it is crystal clear from all available evidence, judging from what is disseminated regularly in the Nigerian mass media of information, that the Igbo is not wanted anywhere in Nigeria. Who said that? Zeke. Did he write this under duress? It is only in Biafra that they and other Easterners have found a place of refuge. In fact, the word Igbo has become anathema almost anywhere in Nigeria. Almost everywhere in Nigeria. Meanwhile, some Igbos were still living in Yoruba land at the time. The logical conclusion is to face the facts of contemporary Nigerian history and recognize the natural and inalienable rights of the Igbo and fellow Easterners to self-determination and so on and so forth. So they have to have Republic of Biafra. So he's saying here, the only thing that will make me come and talk to you guys in Nigeria about anything about Igbo people is if you recognize Biafra. Stay with me. We're going somewhere. Now, what other thing did Zeke do to support Biafra? He traveled across Africa. I mean, that one is very sure. He was a roving ambassador. He will give speeches. They'll go from country to country. They'll talk about the sufferings of the Igbo people and how Biafra was important and that they should recognize Biafra as an independent nation. And they went to Gabon, like I read earlier. They went to other countries. I mean, Biafran representatives were all over the place. They were in Tanzania, they were in Gabon, in different African countries. Some of them also went to Niamey, to Addis Ababa in Ethiopia, Niamey in Niger, and so on and so forth. So it's important to know that all the things I read in the introduction, those are the things that Zeke said afterward, like, they forced me. But from what we are reading right now, it didn't look like they forced him. It looked like he was in on everything in the beginning. Now, I know what I want to read. I just want to read it from a place I will not be squinting my eyes. I cannot believe my eyes. Oh boy. I think reading this thing actually will also help us understand why Igbos actually talk about him the way they do today and forget all the things that he did for them. It might have something to do with this. Mambo. Let me read this one that happened 30th March. This almost so there. Okay, Ononi. Let me just read out one very quickly. This is from Crisis and Conflicts in Nigeria, Volume 2. Zik said, we visited 5 African heads of state. This was in Paris, by the way. Azikiwe, he held a press conference in Paris. We visited 5 African heads of state. We appeal to them to use their good offices to urge upon Nigeria to stop its war against Biafra and accept Colonel C.O. Ojukwu's offer of ceasefire and immediate resort to the conference table for peace talks without preconditions on either side. We emphasize to the African heads of state that we emphasize to the 5 African heads of state that this peace formula was the only realistic way of restoring peace and stability to this part of Africa and speedily bringing to an end the wanton killing of innocent and defenseless civilians. The 5 presidents were reminded that the tragic war had lasted more than 9 months and had not solved anything, whilst the ruthless destruction of human lives and property had been intensified. Probably 100,000 soldiers on both sides have died in this war. The number of civilians killed has been tremendous, and the property destroyed runs to millions of pounds, and so on and so forth. This is not what I want to read. It's part of it. Okay, Motiri. The basic case for Biafra secession from the Nigerian Federation is that people from the eastern Nigeria or from the eastern region can no longer feel safe in other parts of the Federation. They are not accepted as citizens of Nigeria by other citizens of Nigeria. Not only is it impossible for Igbos and people of related tribes to live in an assurance of personal safety if they work outside Biafra, it would also be impossible for any representative of these people to move freely and without fear in any other part of the Federation of Nigeria. That's what I was looking for. I found it. So those are the things, those are the kind of things that he was telling the international community. He said in Tanzania, said it in France, essentially saying that these Nigerian people, they're terrible people, they hate Igbos, they're against us, and so on and so forth. I will still tie everything together, but let's just read a few more books here. I'm going to read from Chinua. Okay. Sinchin says the majority of Nigerians ask Ojukwu to declare his war against them. I'm going to read Achebe, and you can compare what I'm about to read right now from the same book that was a country with how Achebe spoke about Awolowo, even though Achebe was lying. And if you're unhappy with what I just said, yes, he lied. So you're going to compare this, how he made excuses for Zik and how he essentially lied and accused Awo. Take a listen to this. This is from There Was a Country by Chinua Achebe. One must also remember that Azikiwe had spent his entire life first fighting for Nigerian independence under the One Nigeria mantra. In a curious twist of irony, he found the same position manipulated by the British he had helped oust from his homeland. To add insult to injury, Azikiwe watched helplessly as the words he helped invent were then used by the Nigerian army, made up of some of the very same people who from the get-go had rejected the concept of a unified northern and southern Nigeria. Azikiwe supporters allege that the refusal by Ojukwu to consider many peaceful strategies to end this conflict, coupled with the prospect of annihilation of his people, was, I was told, just too much for the great Zik of Africa to bear. The psychologically devastated Biafrans were wrestling with two dire prospects in the latter part of Harmattan season of 1969: mass starvation or death by organized ethnic cleansing at the hands of Gowon's military. He's still repeating this organized ethnic cleansing in it. That's why I said that the book is just a shame, and that you know, Chibi decided to write that as his last book. Anyway, the point here is he's making excuses for Azikiwe that, when Azikiwe saw the fact that everything was against everybody and there was a prospect of annihilation of Igbo people, it was too much for Azikiwe to bear. That's why he now bailed. What are you noticing? You notice that for Awo, who didn't promise them anything, they will heap blames on him and say, oh, he's the one responsible for their predicament. For Azikiwe, that was one of their own, who was on their side and then shifted to the other side, they will have a way to also excuse him. They make excuses for him. Oh, it was the burden of the annihilation of his people. We'll tie everything together, like I said. Just stay with me, please. That was Achebe. So I'm going to go back to the book Nnamdi Azikiwe and the Nigerian Civil War. Okay. Azikiwe graphically explained his own actions at that period in an interview. He said up to April 1968, we were told that the federal military government refused to negotiate without preconditions. This seemed to me a negative approach. Moreover, an atrocities tribunal under the chairmanship of GCM Onyuike, former federal Attorney General, published evidence by witnesses that certain leaders of the Eastern Nigeria were earmarked to be liquidated. My name was included. Naturally, I became apprehensive for my safety. However, when the federal government decided to negotiate without preconditions and there was no intention to liquidate Igbo leaders, However, intention to liquidate Igbo leaders, that put a different complexion on the issues. When now Ojukwu Biafra being non-negotiable, it made some of us to realize that the war was precipitated not necessarily for the survival of Easterners, but for a more sinister purpose. Thus, some of us retraced our steps. I felt I had been bamboozled. So did many others. So Zik is saying here that because Ojukwu insisted that no matter what they discussed, the existence of Biafra as a separate nation was non-negotiable, that was when the Nats got that, so this guy was actually about his own ambition, it wasn't about us. It's funny that it took him that long to understand that. Once Zik abandoned the rebels, the diplomatic efforts suffered severely. It became even worse when in August 1969, Zik's unscheduled arrival in Lagos en route Liberia took both warring sides by surprise. A meeting with General Yakubu Gowon was hastily arranged, and Gowon milked the stopover for every drop of political and publicity advantage he could get. In fact, the meeting set in motion Zik's eventual return to Nigeria. Once he returned, he visited most of the liberated areas and called on the remaining people in the war zones to renounce secession and abandon Ojukwu. I want to play you a video of Zik telling, people what to do in terms of abandoning Ojukwu in a press statement that he gave. Give me a second. Sorry about that. Just trying to connect it. Yeah, I think I found the video now. Please take a listen to this now. The fuller one. Number. Okay. Take a listen, please.
From my limited observation, I am convinced that the right atmosphere now exists for the negotiation of a just and honorable settlement. provided that Nigeria continues to ensure the safety of the persons and property of Biafrans as citizens of one united country, where all its nationals shall be treated as social equals without any discrimination, and where there shall be equality of opportunity for all citizens and inhabitants, there is no tangible reason for the civil war to continue one day longer. Having exchanged views with General Gowon and President Tubman in Monrovia, I am convinced that Nigeria is ready to welcome back into the Federation the Igbo and non-Igbo elements who had been fighting against their motherland.
I apologize, I'm having a little technical issue with Twitter. We're doing multiple stuff, which is well. Alright, so that was a speech. There's another one I'm going to play much later where he was talking to fellow Igbos. But before we get into all of those things, I have some more books to read. So I mentioned earlier that he was a roving ambassador for Biafra. I'm going to read a book called Nigerian Civil War by John de St. Joe. I think it's one of the most, if not the most, objective book about Nigerian Civil War. All right, let's get into this. Boom, boom. All right. Gabon, a mini francophone state close to Biafra and notable mainly for its valuable uranium and manganese deposits and its loving relationship with France, presented a more curious and dubious case. No one was more surprised than the Biafrans themselves when President Albert Bongo announced his recognition. They had not even bothered to lobby him. It seems likely that Houphouët-Boigny and the French had been to work on him. The French having special pride of place in the heart of the Gabonese leadership ever since they intervened with paratroops to save Bongo's predecessor from a coup d'etat in 1964. I'm going somewhere. Campaign by the Biafrans, which had begun well before secession. The quality and breadth of talent among the emissaries, this is where we're going. The quality and breadth of talent among the emissaries played a crucial part, and it is arguable that if the tireless, constantly moving delegations had not contained so many stars, in quote, the results would have been much less satisfying. Most of the principal emissaries were already known to and respected by the leaders they were lobbying, and had made a name for themselves not only in Africa but outside the continent too. The fact that the plea for recognition came from academics, lawyers, churchmen, and diplomats, as well as politicians and soldiers, significantly increased its impact. Men like Sir Francis Ibiam, a former president of the World Council of Churches and governor of the Eastern Region, the gentle and scholarly Sir Louis Banefo, a member of the World Court in The Hague, two distinguished former vice-chancellors, Kenneth Dike and Enin Joku, and the ex-premier of the East, Michael Okpara, were all deeply involved in the recognized Biafra operation. But the man who decisively swung the key states of Tanzania and the Ivory Coast round was the former president of Nigeria, Nnamdi Azikiwe. Zeke's impacts cannot be overstressed. The father, in quote, of Nigerian nationalism and an international figure of many years standing, he had been one of Nyere's and Kaunda's early heroes. That he, the leading architect of Nigeria's unity, should now be advocating its demolition was an argument of considerable force. It is significant that Zeke made a long tour around Africa, including the Ivory Coast, Tanzania, and Zambia, just before the recognitions, and unlike the other Biafran emissaries who had to creep in by the side door, he was treated in the red carpet style of the president he used to be. The recognitions were a landmark in the war. They suddenly injected new hope into Biafra just when everything seemed without hope. Port Harcourt, the last major town and airport, which had been under attack throughout April, fell to the triumphant Black Scorpion in May. The recognition split the OAU, and the fact that 2 Francophone and 2 Anglophone, 2 conservative capitalist and 2 radical socialist states are taking the plunge together effectively smothered the accusation that it was all part of an elaborate neo-colonialist plot. Taken together, they were obviously not a flash in the pan. They carried credibility and conviction. All right, what we're just getting from here is this, that Zeke, like I mentioned earlier, was one of the roving ambassadors, and he helped to actually get recognition for Biafra in Tanzania, in Ivory Coast, and people, of course, gave him that regard, across Africa, because he was one of the quote-unquote fathers of Nigeria. So now that he's advocating for a secession, or for the secession of Biafra, they thought he knew what he was doing. Also, I'm reading from, there was a country by Chinua Achebe. The Nigerian Biafra war led to an explosion of musical, lyrical, and poetic creativity and artistry. Biafra's founders tapped into this energy and commissioned a number of regimental drills, duty songs, and cadences that they hoped would spur armies to victory and excite the populace to political and economic vitality. The Biafra national anthem, Land of the Rising Sun, was based on a powerful poem by Nigeria's first president, Nnamdi Azikiwe, called Onitsha Adonidu, Land of the Rising Sun. Laced with irony, the poem contains several phrases that will become all too prophetic. Quote, but if the price is death for all we hold dear, then let us die without a shred of fear. Spilling our blood will count a privilege. We shall remember those who died in mass. The anthem was set to the beautiful music of the Finnish composer John Sibelius, Philandear Be Still My Soul, a personal favorite of and calculated choice by Ojukwu in reference to the Nordic countries' resistance to foreign domination. Kini yakowa okowa pe Azikiwe wrote the poem that became the anthem for Biafra. Although later on, after he removed his hand, he decided to speak against it. After Azikiwe withdrew his support for the breakaway republic, we will learn that there was some controversy over the adaptation of Azikiwe's poetry. According to Zik, Ojukwu had used his work without permission, a charge the Biafran head of state vigorously denied. By the way, the text is here. I just don't know if I want to read it. Let's read it now. Yeah. It shows that Zik was a good writer, Abi. This is what they wrote. I don't think they used that thing without his permission. I think Zik was okay with it until he wasn't okay with it, and now he's saying that Ojukwu used it without his permission. Land of the rising sun we love and cherish, beloved homeland of our brave heroes. We must defend our lives or we shall perish. We shall protect our earth from all our foes, but if the price is death for all we hold dear, then let us die without a shred of fear. Hail to Biafra, consecrated nation. You know what, let me just stop. I can't be hailing Biafra. But that was his poem, and then it was about Onitsha, but they made it about Biafra. To my own side of the argument. And that is from the Nigerian Civil War. It says the Biafran anthem was said to be Zeke's brainchild. Again, sorry, that's from Nnamdi Azikiwe and Nigerian Civil War. The Biafran anthem was said to be Zeke's brainchild, and even though Zeke said later that my ode to Onitsha Adonidu, Land of the Rising Sun, was plagiarized and adapted to suit the purpose of the secessionists without my consent, in quote. Events had gone too rapidly down the slopes for any rational thinking. The situation was compounded by the fact that Zeke addressed troops. Zeke, that said that they used his song without his permission, actually addressed Biafran troops, encouraging them to fight for the sovereignty of Biafra from time to time. In other words, from time to time, Zeke was talking to Biafran troops. They were playing his song for Onitsha as the national anthem for Biafra, and Zeke was okay with it. It was after Zeke left them in August that he now started saying that they used his song or his poem without permission. So he says here, the situation was compounded by the fact that Zeke addressed troops encouraging them to fight for the sovereignty of Biafra from time to time. Zeke said after leaving Biafra in 1969 that, quote, I was commandeered to read a prepared statement before groups of recruits at 2 training camps near Agu. On each occasion, they broke ranks, shouting, Zeke, Zeke. I understand Ojukwu thought it was more discreet not to send me to such moral boosting missions because he was advised that it made me to appear to be more popular than he. We already know what happened after that. We read it from the book by Sarawiwa. Anyway, at some point, he was going to travel to Liberia, pass through Lagos. I arrived Lagos without either side knowing. I arrived Lagos, had a meeting with Gowon, who spent a lot of time trying to convince him, according to some writers. And then it went, by the time he got back, he just stayed in Nigeria, didn't even bother going back to the Eastern region. And then things changed. And this is one of the things he said in February of 1969. No, that was February of 69. I was still in Biafra now. I don't want to go back. Time is low. Number. In February 69, he was talking about how to end the war. He proposed a 14-point peace plan at Oxford. What I want to read is what he started saying after he defected to the Nigerian side. And so this was published 1969. The defection of a former diplomat. Okay, Mumbo. The defection of a former diplomat who had spearheaded the Biafran cause in Paris and of the one-time editor of Drum, who now switched from the Biafran Directorate of Propaganda to a post in the Federal Ministry of Information. Like the collection of emotional speeches that greeted Zik on his I Am Home Nigerian tour, his interview with a Lagos journalist during the nationwide tour of Nigeria in September, and his report on his fact-finding mission, in which he included his own naming of the Biafran Hawks, remain important documents for a study of a much longer period. Sorry, I'm reading out loud. Guys, I apologize. I just read something. It's from that book, but it's not exactly what I'm looking for. Something I'm looking for. Give me a second, please. Number. Okay. Okay, I found what I'm looking for. Sorry. It took me a while, but so I have a lot of books open and I was mixing things up at the point. I apologize. Alright, Eka begin to wrap up. Back to the book Crisis and Conflict in Nigeria by H.M. Kirk Green. I want to quickly talk about how it was disowned and why people hate him in Biafra today. That's the last part of my conversation today. Crisis and Conflict in Nigeria, Volume 2. It says, Azikwe's new posture, as the federal government described it, was disowned by Biafra, which issued a long statement on the defection of the erstwhile successful envoy and abrasively condemned what it now wrote off as the tragedy of Nnamdi Azikiwe. Added to the reasoned rallying call of a group of Igbo intelligentsia in Lagos, Dr. Azikiwe's reappearance on the scene brought nearer hopes of a possible emotional and psychological breakthrough by the Igbo exiles and intellectuals. Such hopes were only partially muffled by the disturbing contemporaneous publication of 2 articles in influential press circles, suggesting impatience and disillusion in Nigeria with its military leadership, and by the editorial volte-face in a third important weekly journal, along with Dr. Busia's enigmatic promise on his election as Prime Minister that Ghana will reconsider a stand on the Nigerian-Biafran conflict, in the belief that it was imperative to do everything to bring about an effective ceasefire. Let me just summarize and end this stuff with something, with a video from Azikiwe himself. Take a listen, please.
Number 5.
You know what? So they're showing images before they start speaking. So there are images of, this was in London. One Nigeria is a must. These are Nigerians with placards in front of the venue. Zeke sells his conscience to Shell BP. Zeke is dead. These are placards, around that building. So there are Igbos, of course, who are there saying Zeke is dead. There are folks also saying that he has sold his conscience to Shell BP. But take a listen to the man.
On Friday, September 5, 1969, I alighted at the Lagos airport at 2 p.m. and I spent the next 21 days in visiting the capitals of the 12 states of Nigeria, including 4 university towns and certain parts of the liberated areas of former East. It has made it clear to me that all of us have now realized the mistake we made in the past by fighting one another. There is a general feeling, which is widespread, that all are now determined to turn a new leaf and help repair the damage we have inflicted on ourselves. Not only that, there is now a deep-seated desire to have effective central government which will hold the federation intact so that in the future no component of it shall be in position to challenge the fatherland. The world has been shocked that an enterprising people like the Igbo have been tongue-tied and emasculated, that they have allowed tyrants to blindfold and hoodwink them, so that in a war alleged to be fought for their survival, more than 1.5 million children of their country had died of starvation and disease. It sickens me to see the advertisement of skeletal Biafran babies on the pages of newspapers and on the TV screens, begging for charity and relief. It hurts my pride as a human being. His people offer to General Uduku. I wish he would have second thought and inscribe his name in contemporary world history as a brave soldier and a beloved leader, instead of disfiguring the pages of Nigerian history as another political impostor and petty tyrant.
That was a jab at Ojukwu. Well, all of that came much later after I moved out of Nigeria, the Biafran enclave, to begin to support Nigeria. But here's my summary of everything. Here's the truth. Sorry about that. Here's my opinion, and here's what you can actually get from everything we've read. Ezekwe was an opportunist. Was an opportunist. He was okay with Biafra when it served whatever interest he thought he had. He traveled across the world to seek recognition for Biafra. He was respected and he spoke. He even wrote articles to counter what the federal government was saying about Biafra, only to turn around later and say everything he was doing he did under duress. He moved to Nigeria when he discovered, in my opinion, based on what we've read, at that time, Igbo people began to narrate against him, or began to speak against him. So when you have conversations these days, and you see Igbos, just saying all kinds of things about him, it's primarily because they can't come to terms with his double speak and his attitude of neither here nor there. And I believe that it was just an opportunist like many of them. Okay, he saw an opportunity and he jumped ship. And excuse me please, he saw an opportunity and he jumped ship. And if he if he wrote a contemporary anthem that was used, and he didn't complain about it. He was speaking to the forces and he was okay with it, and then turned around later to say, oh, I didn't write it, or they are just using my song without permission. It tells you the kind of person you are dealing with. And I understand why his people think he did what he did to them. Whatever they say he did to them, that's their business. But the point is that he's no hero. Okay? And to the Nigerian side, it was useful towards the end, because having him speak against Biafra now made people feel like, okay, if the person who spoke for Biafra is now speaking against Biafra, that means there's something really wrong going on in Biafra. However, that's the same thing that happened in the beginning. When people said if the person that spoke up for Nigeria is speaking for Biafra, that means there's something wrong with Nigeria. So what Nigeria just did basically was to flip the switch, or flip the story to make him serve the Nigerian purpose. Not because he was necessarily an elder statesman, as far as I'm concerned. I think it was just somebody who knew when to bail before the ship sank, and he succeeded and began to call Ojukwu, a petty tyrant. But I think he has the right to call Ojukwu a petty tyrant, because Ojukwu also called him an old goat. So everybody is fine. I just read some comments, some things in the comment section, and if people want to come up, you can come up and speak for a bit. I think I saw one person, but I'll check. Okay. Let me just read some of the comment sections here, but I'm going to bring you up. Okay. Chudi says the Fulani who put him in power will take him out because they love power. Each Fulani put your daddy in power. My Yusuf says, I think they just want to break away from Nigeria. That's the point. They don't want to break away from Nigeria. That's the point. They don't want to break away. If they want to break away, it would have been easier. They want to go, but they want to leave. They are neither here nor there, but Ezekiel was like that too, so it's understandable. Mimi Israel, he says, I don't think Igbos truly want to leave Nigeria. They know their land is very small. They want to eat their cake and have it. Their revisionism is alarming. Twisting the history of Nigeria is crazy. I agree with you 100%, Mimi. They don't want to leave. They really don't want to leave. Excuse me. And the reasons are understandable. The land is small. They need Nigeria to trade. They are traders. I've never seen a country in my life where a group of people that call themselves developers of the country actually thrive on importation. If you're going to call yourself developers of a nation, at least that means, of a country, that means you're the one producing, you are manufacturing, you are in charge of the commerce and the business of the land, not just trading. And to even be good if it's trading, if you are trading what is locally sourced or locally produced, but no, you are importing. So if you go into that space, what are you going to be importing to sell to? You still need the land. They don't really want to go. But if they want to go, anything they want for themselves, I want for them. If they want to go, that's good. If they want to stay, that's fine. It's just that they're not going to be the ones to determine what happens in the country, as far as the history is concerned. Ugiagbe Iyore on Facebook says, even the elderly hate Nigeria right from time after their intentions have failed. Look at the youth today. They reason like the elderly people, and it is well. I used to get very angry with the young people from the East when they curse me out and insult, until I began to see their elders comment on Facebook. We didn't start with Facebook. We used to just do TikTok. Then later on, we added YouTube. Let's even add Facebook. There are many elders on Facebook. It's a shame. It's a shame. It's a shame. Retirees. One day sorrow. I don't know like agbalagba. So how do you now have a problem with young people when the elders talk the way they do? It's just crazy. I'll bring up the people who are trying to come up, and then we'll hear their thoughts before we close the session for today. Good evening, John Glitz. Good evening. Can you hear me? Because I cannot hear you.
No.
I don't think she's there. Okay. Yeah, good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. What you just said now, I truly believe in it. I truly believe they don't really want to leave, because if they do really want to leave, they would have left instead of all this noise making and all. You understand? I used to stay in a place where I had a neighbor then. She's quite older than I am, and she said one thing, and this was about 15 years ago. No, about over 15 years ago, thereabout. She said during the war that she narrated everything they went through, that they were in the bush, blah blah blah, they suffered and all. She said she would never want the war to occur again. And she's an Igbo lady. She said she would never want that to happen again. And another man had said the same thing again to me. So now, seeing all these people doing all these things, mo wá wò pé àbọ̀ ṣé àfiṣe ni fún wọn ni, ṣé wọ́n ṣe wọ́n ni, wọ́n dì wọ́n ni, torí kò yé mi. Cause if they I'm very, very sure the Yorubas will not be as stupid as they were before. They won't be as kind as they were before. Sorry to use that word, because we are not stupid. But like I always say, a máa ń ro ti ọ̀la. Àwọn ò kì í ro tọ̀la. But àwa máa ń ro ti future. Ọ̀la tí mo mean is the future. We think about the future. If not, tá bá think about the future. After the war, they came back and still got their house, their properties back. They kept it for them. But this time around, tomate law, want a law nìyẹn. Tẹ́ bá gbọ́ ti law nìyẹn, because I will be among the people that máa jókòó máa sọ pé irọ́ sẹ́. Because wàhálà wọn ti pọ̀ jù. It's just too much. And this is hard. Sometimes when they are pushing the Yoruba to like, okay, let's damn all the consequences. Anything tó bá fẹ́ ṣẹlẹ̀ kó ṣẹlẹ̀. Okay, tẹ́ bá fẹ́ dálẹ̀ kẹ́ dálẹ̀. Irú ilé ìtàn ṣe lẹ́kọ̀ọ́ yẹn. It shouldn't have happened. Débi tí wọ́n fi ń gbé àwọn eégún jáde nígbà tẹ́ sọ pé ẹ̀yin lẹ lè kó tán tẹ́ fi jẹ́ káwọn tó nílẹ̀ ẹbẹ̀ kó máa gbé eégún jáde máa ṣe oríṣiríṣi. It shouldn't have happened. Ẹ̀yin nìkan lẹ sọ pé wọ́n hate yín. Okay, now if you're complaining that the Yorubas are tribal bigot, like they always call us, àwọn dẹ̀ ló kọ́kọ́ máa bẹ̀rẹ̀. Like okay, are you saying the South Africans are the same? Are you saying the Kenyans are the same? The Ghanaians are, the Benins are, the Togolese are. Ó ṣe jẹ́ pé ẹ̀yin nìkan náà ní problem pẹ̀lú ní anywhere tẹ́ bá lọ. And they see, my father always says something, pé okoteye bá ti rí kò gbọ́dọ̀ pẹ̀yẹ mọ́, in the sense that if you téèyàn bá ti realize pé there is a problem somewhere, mo ní problem yìí, ibẹ̀ ni solution ti máa wá. I don't think they are seeing this as them being the problem. Wọ́n rí ìgbà tí wọ́n ti ń ṣẹ̀sìn ní outside the shores of Nigeria, ìlú ti yẹ kán mọ̀ pé kán ti pé ọpọlọ wọn wálé pé ó dàbí pé ayé ń ṣe wá o, ká tètè mọ bá ṣe máa ṣọ̀rọ̀ ara wa. In fact, I always get pissed every time I hear them and they say nonsense. I'm sorry, I just
it's okay.
Honestly.
It's okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah. So one of the things that have come out of this whole thing is that it was actually a strategy in the beginning. Like you say things like, there was a war. We're going to get. It's like a person, and I want to say it with all sense of with all respect. It's like a person who. Say somebody who is not very powerful, right? But he's saying he wants to go on hunger strike. Okay, and you feel that moral obligation to ensure that the person doesn't die. Nowhere. It's the same thing. So the person is threatening you with, I will break out. Or, you know that he cannot do anything when he breaks out, because if the person goes on a hunger strike, it's the person that will be affected by the lack of food, Abi. But you also have a moral duty to make sure that the person doesn't kill himself. So this one now says, I want to go, I want to leave. It's not because he really wants to leave. The question you should be asking is this: if a person wants to go on hunger strike, are they going on hunger strike for hunger strike's sake? Or are they going on hunger strike for a particular reason? And in most cases, when people say want to break out of Nigeria, they're trying to use it as a leverage for political negotiation, which makes absolutely no sense, because there is nothing to gain from saying you want to leave. If you leave, it doesn't affect the nation. If you stay, it doesn't really add to anybody. So when you say I want to leave because you want to use it as a leverage, you not say things like, I'm going to blackmail you into having me as a president, into having somebody from my ethnicity as a president, because see what you did to us, look at us. And I always say things like, you can't blackmail Nigeria into becoming president, because Nigeria literally had an Igbo vice president, and they could have had a president if Zik had played the game very well, just like Abubakar Adima mentioned earlier. But they had the vice president in 1979, 9 years after the Civil War. So you can't really use that thing anymore. Oh, we went through the war, we're going to break out of Nigeria. Can you work as leverage? Work, but everybody will be all right. I'm going to read some things on Facebook. Ademola Olabi says, thank you very much for your channel. Thank you, sir. Says, how can we support you in what you are doing? I'm going to put up an account details very soon. Then you can support us using the account details, okay? But you can also reach out to me on Facebook. You're on Facebook, so you can also reach out to me in the DM. That'll be fine. But I'm going to put up account details so that I bring up another person to speak, okay? Someone is saying you are a user. You have no name, and you're always disturbing me. And I would love you to come up. I know you're not Yoruba, because you're always insulting me in the comment section. But you don't have a name. So get a name, all right, and then I'll be able to bring you up. Let me put up the account details for Mr. Owolabi. I like your name. What's your bar or Sogom? All right. So if you'd like to support what we're doing, please use the bank details on the screen. It's a GT account. And I mentioned earlier, like this one, I won the Nigerian Civil War. You can get on Telegram, on Redomi Books. Redomi Books on Telegram. Okay, so please check it out, and you'll be able to get this and other books as well. It says I'm Evangelist Moses. Evangelist Moses, why not just, it doesn't really matter if you're Evangelist or Alpha, but why not write it as your username instead of having user 93 Kiniko. But you know what, let me bring you up. We're going to have a great conversation. So Evangelist. All right, while Evangelist is coming up, if you want to get any of these books, please go on Telegram, Redomi Books, Redomi Books. You'll be able to, order these books. Anywhere you're in the world, the books will be delivered to you. They are hard copies, not e-copies. The only e-copies you find there are the ones, some of the books that I wrote, but you find them also on that Telegram channel. Thank you very much. All right, Evangelist Moses.
Yes, I'm here. Good evening, brother.
Good evening.
Yeah,
Chief, why not change your username to Evangelist Moses? It's not going to be better that way, so that I'll be able to call you by your name.
Almost everybody know me in this TikTok as Evangelist Moses. That is my name.
Me, I don't know you.
Okay. Omo Botala, Mr. President, all of them, Zaza, they all know me. So what I want to say is this.
So what do you want to, okay, please go on.
Yes. Please, I hope you allow me to express myself,
It depends on what you say, oh.
Yes, I don't lie. That is one thing. I don't tell lies.
No, and it's not even about lies. It depends on what you say.
I've been following you for
Please go on.
I've been following you for a very long time. And I know you are very...
You've been insulting me for a very long time, too.
You are highly...
You insult me in the comment section.
Highly educated. And that is all I must give it to you. I've been following you and the way you handle your matter. But the only thing I notice, your hatred for Igbo is extraordinary. It's alarming. So because I follow you all the time. At the time I was in Omo Batala platform, they were saying that they are going to enchant Igbos all over Africa. That are going to make sure they cause problem, crisis for Igbos all over Africa.
Sorry. One second. Evangelist, yes. Please speak to what we're discussing here. Talk about what we're discussing here.
I don't know the
Let's just
topic,
focus
but
on what we're
what you're
discussing
trying to
here,
say,
not about what...
I saw you...
No, hold on.
in
See,
Ghana and
hold
South
on
Africa.
now. I want you to... Jesus is Lord. I want you to speak, right? But don't tell me about what happened somewhere else. And I don't know what happened there. I was not there, so I don't know the full story. Just talk about what you want to talk about based on what we have discussed today, okay? We've talked
I'm
about
just coming
different
to the
things.
platform now.
And if
I
you want
don't
to
even
speak...
know the topic. I'm just
How
coming
you
to the
go
platform.
come out, can't talk when you don't know topic?
I'm trying
okay,
to...
the topic we say, what's it...
Do you know what I want you to...
Okay, what's happened? Why? Okay, let me ask you a question. Why did Zeke... How?
I want you to do something for me. Maybe after this program, you can Google it by yourself. You have Yoruba king at Enugu, even in Owerri. Even the one at Enugu, he was given free land by Igbos. You check it, you see it. The one at Enugu, he was given free land by Igbos, and he said that
Wait. I want you to speak. How did we get to Enugu? Like, there's a topic now. We're discussing Zeke, Biafra, and a legacy of contradiction, right? And then we've also discussed the news, and we didn't even mention anything about...
I saw where you were. I saw you where you were commending Bianca because of...
I'm muting you. Just calm down. Calm down. I want you to speak. I brought you up, even though I don't like bringing people without names, but I brought you up because you're always in the comment section insulting me. So I was like, let's even hear you out. I want you to speak. Just calm down. What do you want? Assume that you just want to say your own. I'll give you 4 minutes, okay? Anything you want to say, but don't refer to any other platform. And the reason is because I don't know what they did there or what you guys discussed, so I don't want to begin to argue or talk to you about something I don't know. So please just stick to maybe something you read me say and you want to...
That can make us to stay together and have a better Nigeria. The level of which shouting against Igbos is getting out of hand. You cannot tell me every time they say Igbo kings, every time they're causing problem in Ghana, in South Africa, Igbo king. But you have the same Igbo Yoruba king in Ghana. You have them at Enugu. You have them in everywhere. But the one of Igbo has become like somebody that crucified Jesus Christ. People that crucified Jesus Christ. That is the area I'm talking about. I don't tell you things that you will not Google. After this program, make out your time and Google it. You will see everything. You will see the Yoruba king at Enugu praising Igbos because of the level of love they are showing to him. He speaks Igbo very well. He speaks Yoruba very well. He speaks Hausa, even Hausa very well. He will tell you that there's nothing like discrimination where he's staying, that the Igbos love him and they're showing him so much love. But when it comes to Igbos, they say Igbos, everywhere they go, they're looking for king. In South Africa, in Ghana, and as if Igbos are doing what others have not done. That is my point. When it comes to, you are very intelligent because I've been following your program, and but when you are when you are all this intelligent and your hatred for Igbos is alarming. I don't you get as it be. You understand me, brother?
Okay, thank you.
The amper justice with mercy. I don't like seeing people criticizing my tribe, especially when. So, like, had it been, I didn't tell you to Google it. The Igbo Yoruba king at Enugu. You Google it, you see everything.
All right, thank you very much.
You see everything by yourself.
Prof, please, I would like to say something.
Okay, who will go first? You or Mr. Arabi? Okay, ladies first. You go, then Mr. Arabi will speak. Okay, yeah, let's do that.
In response to what our gentleman has just said, even if there is a king in the East, a Yoruba king, he would not. I don't think he will be a king. He will be like the one who is leading the Yoruba community in that vicinity. And there is something, I don't know, I'm sorry, sir. Maybe you will have to ask somebody to tell you the meaning. in English. The Yorubas a máa fi ọwọ́ wa síbi tọ́wọ́ ń gbé. A kì í ṣàṣejù. The meaning is that I don't know how to explain it in English. We don't overdo things. Right. We don't talk too much. We don't pass our boundaries anywhere we are. We look before we leap. We do things according to the laws of the land. That is why you don't see anybody shouting Yoruba is going against any laws in any land. That is the difference between Yoruba and Igbo. And nobody is.
Thank you.
But a few days ago, my sister.
No, hold on, please. See, this is why I don't do all these things. Just hold on.
Okay.
Miss John, please, can you wrap up in like 30 seconds?
And nobody is calling the Igbo name just without nothing. They have done something. And until you people accept the fact that you are it first. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, Evangelist, let me quickly tell you something, right? Don't do things because you see other people do it. Because the level of what made them do what they're doing, you may not understand it. In other words, you are concerned with what they are doing, not why they are doing it or how they got to the point where they are able to do it. So let me give an example. You mentioned Ghana. Yorubas have been in Ghana since around 18th, 19th century. All right, that was before British. And you are talking about Google. Let me give you Google too. Google Brahma family. The Yoruba moved to present-day Ghana before it even became Gold Coast. So they're essentially Ghanaians. And another thing is this: Yoruba and Igbo, we are not twins. What are opposites, synonyms? We are not connected. The idea that if a Yoruba person does something, an Igbo person should do it makes no sense. For instance, if you put your inside fire, I will not put my inside fire. Yoruba that you are looking at in other parts of the world, you mentioned Ghana, for instance. Many of them are actually part of that place. They can trace their origins to Nigeria, but many of them are Ghanaians because they were there before Ghana even became Ghana. There are many of them that are also Nigerians. Okay, now, so there are two groups. Number one, there are those who were there. In fact, there are three groups. There are those who are ancestrally connected to that place. Some of them traveled to. I apologize for the noise. It's raining. Some of them traveled to the palace of the Oni in Ife. That's the Ga people. You can't compare yourself to those ones. There are those who have been there before the British got there and then created the Gold Coast. Those ones, you cannot compare yourself to them. Just because they are Yoruba does not mean they are Nigerians. Which is another thing you have to learn. Igbos are domiciled in Nigeria. Yoruba people, it is the Berlin Conference that caused this nonsense. That cut Yoruba people into Nigeria, into Benin Republic, into Togo, and of course some of them eventually now decide to migrate to Ghana. That was before you guys knew anything about what Oyinbo people look like. Okay, so the idea is stop thinking that because a Yoruba person is doing something, you can also do it. You don't have the same history. The Yoruba person you are looking at in Ghana is Yoruba, but he's not Nigerian. That's one. Now there is a third group. Those are Nigerians who moved to Ghana, right? Those ones will have communities, right, where they have somebody leading them. But here's the reason Ghanaians don't have any problem with them. It's what Ms. John said earlier. They know their limits. They know their boundary. They're not trying to create a separate place and create a community and say we're going to create this Yoruba town, like the Igbo guy in Ghana was saying was going to create an Igbo town and to have Igbo schools and to have in another person's land. Which tells you that you are copying what you are saying without knowing the people who actually did it. You don't have a civilization. You didn't.
Can I respond to you?
No, not yet. Oh, I don't do all this back and forth. Just it's like you trying to do something because you saw an American do it. If you say you want to go to the moon because an American went to the moon, what are you going to use to go there? Bangolo, like you don't have the tech to be able to do it. Civilization. Forget about the fact that you like to travel to the moon. You have to take time, study, develop the tech that will allow you to now